Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. I'm your host, John Maddox, and tonight we're having another stream you just won't want to miss. If you got what it takes, click that link. But prepare yourself, for this arena is not for the weak. Now, let the mental combat begin. But always make sure your arguments are LPP. What is going on, everybody? Welcome. It's been a while since I've done one of these streams. I appreciate everybody hopping over from the one and only Standing for Truth, from the awesome debate that just went down between Luca and Otangelo on Is There Evidence for Intelligent Design? As everybody knows, that's one of my favorite topics. So I just could not resist to come out of my winter hibernation from YouTube and do an after show. But actually, I've been working on some stuff, and I'm getting ready to come back with a vengeance on YouTube. But this one was a reason I just had to come and get in on the fun. Hope everybody's having a fantastic last month and a half or so as we're getting ready for the coming into the amazing Christmas season, and a insane year of 2021 is almost coming to an end. It's kind of amazing how fast the time has been flying by. It feels to me like the last 2 years of my life have been like the equivalent of a month in the time prior to it. But hey, you know, as they say, as you get older, your perception of time actually speeds up. And I guess it just means I'm getting old at this point. But for people who want to join into the after show and to have some conversation, the link is pinned in the side chat. So make sure you click on there and get back on. I want to say many thanks to the members who've stayed with me, even though I've been gone for a month. I appreciate that. Andrew Kaufman's here. I think I saw Jamie and several others who were bouncing around inside. I want to say thank you guys so much. Jerome's here as well. I saw Standing for Truth in the side chat. We've got a bunch of people coming in here, so I appreciate everybody who has helped me get the channel going, keep it going, and to have some fun and frivolity in all this stuff. But now, without further ado, I've actually got Luca is backstage. I'm going to bring him on. I guess anybody who wants to come in and share their thoughts on the debate, the link is in the side chat. So come on in and join, and we will have some fun. But what's up, Luca? Welcome to the after show. How are you doing? How's everything going on over there in?
Yeah, I'm fine. Quite tired because it's almost 5 a.m., but still holding up. I do not know how much I will last, but I will try my best.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, it's as you said, almost 5 a.m. your time. But although Luca, I have seen you join streams in the past and around the same time, but usually it's with a glass of wine in hand from your late night partying. So I don't want to hear any excuses from you about staying up this late.
With a glass of wine, do not remember, but
Well, that's the point, Luca. Is you had so many glasses of wine that you just didn't remember joining the stream. I mean, it's totally
yeah, it's
understandable.
very hard for me to get drunk. Fun
But
fact: I did have a party today too. So Donny always seems to organize my debates when I do have parties. So yeah.
so, what do you think about the debate? How did you feel about it? What do you think were the best points between you and Otangelo?
Yeah, I have to give that to Otangelo. He did put up a lot of work in his presentation. I think he did well. His mistake, in my humble opinion, was to touch down on the chemistry because yeah, I'm just a bachelor in chemistry, but I do know something about it. So yeah, I do not think it's too wise to pick up a fight with a chemist in chemistry territory. Yeah.
Well, then, if I by that logic, then should nobody ever question the fact that somebody like Dr. James Tour questions the abiogenesis chemistry, given the fact
No,
that
no, no.
he is
Okay.
one of the top. I'm just saying, like following the logic here, right? Like because I hear those kinds of talking points, but oh, we shouldn't go after X, right? But I guess what I would say is I hear people on your side, eviscerate folks like Dr. Tour and say he's not involved in origin of life research, therefore he doesn't understand the chemistry, right?
Okay.
And but I would argue that, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but I would argue that somebody who's one of the top 10 most cited chemists in the world probably can review the chemistry and understand it. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Okay. It's not that simple. Let's say that my point was a little bit different. It's not wise to pick up a fight with a chemist if you do not you are not prepared enough. I think I did score some good hits with Otangelo, even though he did put up a good fight and I did enjoy the debate. But if you do not know about chemistry as me, you are in disadvantage. I would be in at disadvantage with the tour because tour is an expert on chemistry. But we also need to remember that someone like tour is a specific field where he operates, and it's not abiogenesis. When you study something, you do 3 years, like me, in general chemistry, and then you start to specialize in something. So
Well, no, I mean,
when
I get that point, your point, Luca. But I guess the principles and one of my biggest issues with the positions taken by you and a lot of other folks in these types of conversations and debates is that unless you are an expert in every aspect of minutia of a specific discipline, then you can't possibly, number one, understand the principles, or number two, or number two, recognize the plausibility of something. And one of the reasons I find that so frustrating is that would be like telling a computer programmer who is a full stack developer and understands, all the principles and such, right? And then telling them that because they've never written, a specific function type or like written this particular type of software, that they couldn't go and analyze the code and understand exactly how it all works. Or if they decided to sit down and do it, wouldn't be able to create something in that field just because they haven't done it before. And the like that's what I find very for one aspect I find it very condescending and insulting to somebody's intelligence. Number one, to claim that they wouldn't somehow be able to understand it. And then number two, to when they call something out, rather than being able to actually answer the questions that are raised, it's like, oh, well, you just don't understand this. Or you're not an expert in X field. Therefore, you just don't understand. But without actually countering the objections that are raised based on the principles. You follow me?
Okay. I can give you an example. When I prepare my thesis, I was doing stuff over polymers, organic ones, and I had a professor over me, of course, and he was an expert in inorganic compounds. I can assure you that he was clueless about what I was doing. It's not like you cannot infer in other fields or other parts of chemistry. You can. You need to study to prepare. You can. You need time. You need a lot of effort, and I'm pretty sure that Tour will get me like nothing. I do not think I can
look,
go
I'm not.
over a debate
Look,
with
I'm not.
him.
Look, I'm not really making this about like tour specific. I'm talking about.
No,
Right
no,
now,
no.
I'm
It
talking
was
more like in a general.
an
I'm talking about in a
example, of
general.
course.
Right, I'm talking in a general sense, though, right? Like
Yeah.
I totally follow what you're saying. I completely agree with you that like especially in the hyper minutia of what modern science has turned into, and obviously for somebody's dissertation, I mean, they're supposed to be coming the, whatever their thesis is, they're supposed to be basically the world's expert on that specific topic in that moment, right? That's the whole
No,
point.
no, no. You can
And
study and can talk about something, not less. It's not like Thor does not understand chemistry, but when you talk about something so specific, you need a lot of work to understand
I agree, but
the
I was
things.
going somewhere with your point there. Like, so you're the professor that you were under. He
Hmm.
might not have been fully aware or as knowledgeable as you in we say biopolymer, whatever you were.
I was studying organic polymers, and
Okay,
he
so organic
was
polymer. So what you were focused on, obviously
Mhm.
your knowledge was greater than his. However, if that professor went and spent time analyzing your research and other people's research on the same topic, right? I don't think that you would ever argue that and claim that that professor who took the time to go and research to look through your research and other people's research and analyze your methods and all those different things. I don't think you would ever come out and be like, well, I don't think he understands what I'm doing now. If he had gone and taken the time to analyze it, even though he hadn't done a bunch of research on it himself personally, if he went and analyzed your research and others, would you then make the argument that he doesn't actually understand it?
Well, to be fair, was quite clueless about that topic. It was a completely different field. Inorganic chemistry and organic chemistry are quite different. So, yeah, it would be possible for him to understand, but I do not know how much. Because to know something to that level, you need to do a lot of work, experiments, to be in the lab. To I was under a PhD student that was specialized in polymers, organic ones. So it will be possible, but like a lot of work. It's not that easy. And yes, of course, you can discuss about any topic if you put the work in it. But if you start a discussion with a physicist or chemist or whatever, uh, you are at disadvantage, of course. If you do not have that degree, did you not have those? In my case, I think 3,000 hours of study in chemistry. If you do not have that, of course, you are um, behind me in that regard. So it's possible, but it's very hard.
No, I get where you're coming from that. And real quick, so I just realized that the one and only George Bond from Down Under has been very generous with the super chats. Thank you so much, George. And he says, "Don't spend it all on pizza." And I think he was making jokes about I'm losing too much weight, which is why he's trying to make sure I buy pizza. They, so George, I actually have. I don't know what is going on, but somehow I managed to break 200 pounds. I was back up to like I got down to 180, then I got back up to like 207, and now I'm back to like 198. So it's I'm shooting to get back to the 180 as soon as possible because it's obnoxious. But I guess we may end up having an extension of the debate here because Tangelo has also joined us. And folks, if you want to join the after show, the stream link is in the side chat. It's also pinned. Come on in here, have some conversation. But what's up, Otangelo? How are you doing, man? I heard have you now been relegated to only being able to use your phone? Did your computer finally give out, or what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, I'm still on my phone. I will have to check next week about my computer. Maybe it's a software problem or something, you know.
Now, is Brazil? Do you guys have major technology shortages? Like I'm talking about, just because of all the stuff going on. Like, is it hard to get higher level technology right now, or is it still being able to come in?
No, I think in my case the problem is just software, but we have no problems of supply of software of computers or so.
Okay, well that's good. I didn't know if there's I know with all the microchip shortages, I know different countries around the world were having major
Oh
issues.
yes, yeah.
It's amazing. Like
That is
I've been trying to
probably
get. There's a phone I've been trying to get for the last 6 months, and the waiting list is like 6 months, 6 months long for it. So I was like, man, I can only if you're in the States, there's a short waiting list for something as straightforward as a high end phone. I can only imagine what it is in other parts of the world.
yeah, that's not specific Brazil, probably the whole world, as you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great debate. Like I said, I enjoy listening to both of you guys tonight. Tangelo, I thought your opening presentation was fantastic. You had great information there, and obviously, Luca, you had some good comeback talking points and arguments overall. What were your Luca was sharing some of his thoughts? How did you feel, Tangelo? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I always put a lot of efforts in my introduction, presentation, because I think that's what we want to bring forward to others to study and think about these things, and yeah, and I enjoy doing it.
It was a very good job. I can say that.
Yeah, I find it very interesting how it seems like in many of these debates these days, we're now coming down to the not a total dead end, but something of a dead end. It's like the arguments and the presentations of the evidence on the ID side, or the technology that has to be accounted for in life, is just so astronomical. And then, now, Luca, you kind of made this. I remember hearing you say something to this effect earlier, of like, well, it just happens in stages. And I personally am having a harder and harder time the more and more I learn about. You made the point about learning about chemistry, Luca. the more I'm learning about the intricacies of microbiology and the and genetics and just the overarching, the plethora of protein domains and the codes and all these different things that are being discovered like on a daily basis, it seems. I mean, to me, the argument that, oh, it just happened in stages is not even remotely plausible to me anymore. As the more we're discovering about the interdependencies of all these different functions. And it's like, well, if they're interdependent, then the premise that they could just happen slowly, not at the same time, is not really coherent, in my opinion.
Well, I simply disagree. For what I can tell, I just know to not know. That's my point. I'm not an expert, of course, in anything. It's not like I have a master degree or PhD. But for what I can tell, it's not that far fetched to think that we can get to organic molecules to life and so on and so forth. Natural selection mutations are quite a strong tool to get once you have life to get everywhere you want. Of course, abiogenesis is a different topic. It's more art. It's quite. It's not a theory for sure. So we do just have hypotheses. It's completely different. But yeah, I've been in a lab for some month, and I did work with chemistry, of course. And for what I can tell, it's not that far fetched. But that's my opinion, and I'm not an expert.
So, are you saying that you actually observed the uncontrolled, undirected formation of new functions?
New function? What do you mean? I was working with chemistry, so not life. I did.
Well, I get that, but that's the whole point. Is pre-life, you have to somehow have chemistry in and of
Yeah,
itself somehow form controlled function that's replicable, and
yeah,
that's the whole point. Is we don't actually observe that. That's not observed. Everybody knows it's not observed. All the experiments show that it's not observed, and the small little kind of sortas that are executed are the result of massive amounts of intelligent agency being the prerequisite in order for those kind of sortas that aren't actually like what we actually need to have happen in terms of even something as simple as replication. And that's before you even get into things like, oh, are you accounting for the necessity of like single strand binding proteins to account for the annealing problem, just in something as simple as DNA replication? And but in these conversations, it's like, oh, it's not that hard. But then when you ask people the questions of like, have you accounted for something as simple as single strand binding proteins? The answer is always either I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, or no. And that's where I get so frustrated with the way these things just get glossed over and like oh, we're almost there, but we haven't even accounted for the basics yet. So if we can't even account for the basics, then how are we remotely accounting for the higher level stuff, which must be accounted for if you want anything in your arguments to be plausible? Go ahead.
okay. My point is, it's not like we are talking about something. It's not chemistry or physics. So we cannot observe right now anything supernatural. And for
I'm
what
not
I
asking.
can
I'm not
tell,
asking about
it's not.
supernatural. I'm talking
Sorry.
about I'm not talking about supernatural. I'm talking about the natural. Isn't everything that you're arguing based on naturalism?
Yeah, but my point is, how can you tell me that there was a designer. You need to show me that that designer does exist.
So
We do not know.
Luca,
Yeah.
I have to show you that the designer exists. Okay, so in a if there is a let's say in the yeast bacteria that we have modified to produce insulin, are you suggesting that just the observation of that organism, without actually observing the editing taking place in order for that yeast to now create insulin, are you suggesting that being able to analyze it would not give you indication and evidence in favor of a designer having to exist?
Well, of course, but you need to show that a designer can even exist.
No. Hang on. So you agree that that function that exists now, that even if you never saw it ever happen, you would agree that that would be indicative of a designer having to precede that function, correct?
Without any proof that a designer exists, you can at most formulate an hypothesis, because if you cannot show a designer,
I didn't
how
say it
can
proved.
you?
I didn't say it proved. I said it would be indicative of the fact that a designer
Okay,
must have been in place.
you can form an hypothesis, and I can tell you that it's even possible to have a designer. Okay, but it's not science, because you can give us an hypothesis, but you need to show evidence for it. It's possible to have a designer. Yes, I think that the clockmaker, argument, it's quite a good one. We cannot say it's impossible, of course, but it's another thing to say we can prove it, because if you need to do science, you need to formulate an hypothesis and find a way to disprove that hypothesis. And if you cannot show a designer, how can you say that a designer does exist? You can
So let's think about
Luca,
let's think about the reciprocal of that, right? So you're starting from the position that there could not possibly be a designer, correct? And I have to prove that there was one, right? Versus,
no. I say that it's possible. I do not believe in it. If you say
well, I
so,
know you don't
yeah,
believe, but you keep saying you need to be able to prove it, right? You need to be able to show that's the case, right? The point I'm making is you operate from the reciprocal, that there couldn't be one, and now I'm speaking rhetorically here.
Sorry.
So the atheist / materialist perspective is that there is no designer. We're not even consider there's a designer, because there must be some natural process which can account for this. Versus, and the point I'm making is, I would argue that the evidence that we observe is that it is more probable that the designer exists, and it's up to you to prove that the designer does not exist, given the fact that everything that we observe inside of a biological system is exactly that. It's a system. It's a very complicated one. It's a very high level one. And the technology is vastly superior to anything that humans have ever created. It is, the nanotech, we are attempting, as you know full well, humans are attempting to create nanotechnologies that are not anywhere close to what the nanotechnology that enables life to exist. So my point is, I think abiogenesis should be you guys trying to prove that that the designer is not required, versus the reciprocal. And yet it's taken from the position from you guys that no, I need to prove that there was a designer, when my argument is, one of my, not the only argument, one of the foundational arguments is, it seems like the evidence is everywhere. Why don't you prove to me the designer is not required? And if scientists were not operating from the methodological naturalism being the only premise, or the only starting point, then I think that the confidence that you guys put forth would be completely eviscerated, when it's like how do you create genetic codes and other organic codes. We have no freaking idea. We can't recreate them. We don't know. But we know there wasn't an intelligent agent that was required for that. Like, that's the argument you guys make. Oh, there's all this, there's nanotech robots that enable life to exist. Where did the robots come from? Doesn't matter. We know it wasn't from a designer. Okay, prove it. Versus why I was asking you the point of, like, if you come across, one of the many things that we've reprogrammed yeast to produce, or we're creating like boats that can spew freaking silk and stuff, like in those contexts, taking like other pre-existing technology and injecting it over into another organism is, in any other context, would be considered like stupidly high level genetic engineering. But then when we see all of the engineering that's all these other systems, then somehow it's like, oh, that's definitely not evidence for design, even though when we do it, it is. Like, I don't understand. Like, and the fact that concept completely goes over not just your head, Luca. I'm talking. This seems to like completely shoot over the head of Evo atheists. That, like, in any other context, it would be what you guys are doing would be considered evidence of intelligent agency being required, except in terms of our existence. It's hilarious.
John, wait till we invent a von Neumann probe, then they won't believe we made anything.
Well, yeah, I guess. Okay, so enough of my rant. I'm going after Luca. Jamie's here. What's up, man? Your turn. Tell us about the debate. What'd you think? Welcome. Good to see you. And then Sledge will have up after you, and then we'll get back into conversation.
I'm still wondering about those darn pesky ostriches. The flight bird.
It's an emu. It's not an ostrich, and it's quite fascinating because it has that tiny claw. It's curious because if you think that's just dinosaurs, you can explain that just like that. It had arms and it has no more, just a claw. But if you think it's just a bird, it's quite.
No, how to classify it? Yeah, like why would God create that or whatever? Seems like young Earth creationists are more inclined to take on the idea of like, parts of evolution being the case anyway, rather than outright denying it. It seemed like obviously they'd probably. I would suggest, or I would guess that it was just like a derivative, was the original kind supposed to fly or something is the question I would ask. And then, I don't know.
Yeah, but if you give an emu arm with claws and a tail and maybe some teeth, you have a dinosaur. So that's
right. Well, yeah, like there seems to be a lot of overlap with different animals. But I was wondering, have you heard of I think it's called a von Neumann probe. Have you heard of that?
No.
I think it was an idea. Like, a guy who's like really smart, I guess, and I don't know if he's a physicist or a theoretical physicist. I'm not sure, but he posited the idea like regarding like populating the universe and like how you could if we could invent a probe that can be. I may have these concepts mixed up a little bit, but if you sent
Jimmy, are you talking about von Neumann?
I'm not sure. I thought it was von Neumann. But it's the idea that maybe somebody can look it up or whatever. I can't at the moment, but the idea though is that I'm asking about is this idea that you make a probe that can you could send to another planet that could essentially reproduce itself, right? Like make like land on a planet and then gather the materials it needed, and then that's
okay.
And so I'm just wondering regarding intelligent design and the study of biology. Now, if we were able to, I think we'd all agree that if we saw technology like abandoned technology on another planet, we would probably be able to assess the idea that this was something perhaps created by a civilization, like a sentient being. Right, we agree on that. But like, so my question is like, if let's say we found a broke down self-replicating probe like this on another planet, but let's say it was broken down, but there was evidence of this, and we saw it on like the moon of the planet and like a nearby planet also, and it seems like this thing was reproducing, but it maybe had died, or maybe it's still reproducing. Like, would you then say, oh, well, actually, no, this wasn't technology made by a sentient being, it was a natural process? Maybe
Okay. Okay. Of course, a probe would be quite a good evidence for it, but as I said, back to Standing for Truth channel, if you find just a machine and you cannot prove that a designer exists, you cannot rule out the idea, the probability that was formed by any natural means. Of course, it's quite hard to think something like a probe creating itself. But here we are talking about chemistry. It's quite different. It's not like it works in the same way as the macroscopic world. So it's a little bit different. Also, the problem is still why, if a designer exists, why we cannot contact him. That will be a good proof for sure. But okay, it's impossible to do so. But if it does exist, where did it intervene? At the beginning of space-time? At the beginning of our planet? 6,000 years ago? And why? We can say that. Those are various problems. To me, it's possible to have a designer, but it's just an hypothesis. It's not science. You can say to me that it makes sense, but in science, you cannot just say, okay, that this thing just makes sense. It does not work that way. So if you say to me, I believe with faith that a designer exists, I will say nothing to you. You are free to believe so, and you will be maybe right to do so. But science is another thing entirely.
Well, what about my point? Yeah, I hear you. I just wonder about. It seems like everybody can kind of see the idea of seeing like a machine is like it would be probable. You could study like how it was potentially produced, like the parts and stuff, by looking at it, studying it, and then even making correlations to like our own machinery and development from the Industrial Revolution. And it seems like, I mean, would you say, I mean, sure, you can't prove it historically, like you can't really prove anything in that sense, right? But like, I'd still think that studying that would be a science. And it seems like most people would agree that that would be a pretty well, something you could feel like you were establishing that these things were produced, right? Like machines and whatnot. And I guess you kind of disagree with that, but that seems self-evident to me. But then I was trying to make the leap to like what it would, how you could compare that to biology and like with a separate self-replicating machine. Like it seems like in evolutionary, the way people argue about this, well, it's like that has something to do with not thinking it was designed, which I just seems absurd to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not making a lot of sense, but I'm trying to make a point.
As I said, it depends where you want to start, because natural laws by itself, I think that reality is complex enough to get where we are. You can maybe say that reality was made by something or someone, and that's fair, but it's just an hypothesis without any evidence. To me, to have evidence, you need to show the creator, and I do not know because why such a creature, a god, will hide I can understand. I was a Catholic, so it's not like I was never atheist. But if God exists, it's his choice to not show himself. And that's a problem. Until he does, you can just make an hypothesis. If you have an hypothesis, you need to find a way to disprove it. So, if a creator does not exist, what I would observe in nature and go from there. Abiogenesis, you need to try to disprove that hypothesis, to look every possible way to synthesize that kind of thing. If you cannot, in theory, never find that pathway, that does it mean that abiogenesis was not possible. So also, a lot of people have problem with abiogenesis, but I think it's nonsense. You can still have a God and abiogenesis. If you have a God, you don't have any problem, because with a God he can direct those reactions whatever he wants. But you can still have both.
All right. Well, I think it's Sledge's turn. What's up, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, brother. How have you been, man? I'm glad to see you back. One thing is, Luca, your line of thinking, in my opinion, is just backwards. I feel like the burden of proof is on you to prove that there's not a designer, versus I feel like the matter creation itself speaks for itself. Even the Bible says creation itself is evidence of the creation. It had to have gotten here from somehow. So it's just a matter of what. And your non-belief is really, in my opinion, a belief of anti or against what Christ did. Not that I think that you're, like some sort of Satanist or anything like that. It's just that I just feel like the burden of proof would be on you there versus the burden of proof to be on us. Me personally, I've had personal evidences. I can't impart that to you because it's not going to, that wouldn't do anything. That's not going to be enough for you. You have to have your own type of evidence. But you're talking about a being that is not bound by the 3 or 4, or however many dimensions that we operate in. So I feel like the burden of proof would be more on you to prove that there's not a designer versus the reverse.
I simply disagree, because when you do science, you have an hypothesis. I give you an example. Hold the same. I did a thesis, so it was my only time in a lab setting. Of course, a lab not for students. It was a real lab. My point was to prove or disprove that a chemical compound was soluble or not in anything, basically. I was there to solve that polymer in anything. In literature was deemed impossible to do so. And I managed to did it. So what I did back then, I just try every solvent possible until I get some results. But if my point was to try to disprove, in fact, my point. You try and try and try. If you cannot do it, you have disproven yourself. And it's how science works. I have an hypothesis. I have to try to disprove it, to remove bias, because I do want to succeed, of course. We all are. But science is all about remove bias. Can you understand? So if you have that hypothesis, you need to try your best to disprove it. I think that God or a designer is real. You need to try your best to disprove the designer. And if you cannot, then maybe you're getting somewhere. So it's your point to prove the existence of a designer if you have that hypothesis, or to disprove it, like science work.
See, I
How would you
disagree. And the reason I disagree on that is because what you believe is what's taught to kids in schools versus what I believe is not what is taught to kids in schools. You know, and what you believe is just as much of a belief as what I believe is. What you believe as far as the time frame of how long things have existed, how life evolved, all of that, you think that's what you believe, but that's not absolutely scientifically 100% observable, provable. You know, you can try and date back things and do whatever, however you want to do it. I do believe that we are in a mature, evolved universe and evolved world. I think that Adam was a grown man when he was created, and he looked older than he was on the first day. I think that the universe looks older than it is for these reasons, because it's a created actual world. But what you believe is what you believe, and it's also taught to our kids. And our kids are coming up, and it's this type of teaching, in my opinion, that is going to continue to perforate throughout this world. And I wish you could see that what you believe is a belief, because I feel like you view it as non-belief, and it's just as much a religion as what any of us believe.
Okay, first of all, it's not like Bob was asking if I did the same on my side. Yeah, it's what you are welcome to do, to try to disprove and challenge your professor to a degree. You are encouraged to do so, to ask questions, to challenge the professors. And I do know some people that even got the best of those professors, getting better results, better equations, and so on and so forth. I even know a guy that ruined an entire research from a PhD, and it was just an undergrad. So it's what you are welcome to do when you do science. You need to doubt everything, even evolution. But when you do so, and I did my fair share of experience on that field. It's not like I did anything at expert level, but I was tinkering with horizontal gene transfer in my high school years. So I did some experiments by myself. So
do you think that your experiments and such, do you think that they did falsify a creator? And if
No.
so, how did you do that?
As I said, it's not possible to falsify a creator because you cannot know everything I do not believe in a creator, but I cannot disprove one. If you say that you believe in one by faith, I cannot say anything with
I know
you.
how to
You have-
falsify. I know how to falsify God. You know how to falsify God? All you have to do is show matter making itself or directing itself, and you falsified God.
We will never observe that, I think. But if we will, maybe it will be still be possible to a God to exist if it's outside our reality. But at that point, it does really change anything if it's not in our reality.
Luca,
It's always possible to have something more.
Luca, who invented the wheel? Did
As
it
I
happen
said,
by?
we
Yeah,
know
but
that we're humans,
right.
Homo
But
sapiens. We can find their works. We can know their method. We can find if the wheels are made by stone. We can find their minds, their tools. We can find evidence for their existence. We can find their corpses.
so you're
We
sure it
can
was
reproduce
designed
the
with
method.
certainty, right? You're sure the wheel was designed. The wheel is designed with absolute certainty, even though we don't know who the original designer was.
Well, we can say that with a good percentage of certainty. It's not
Okay.
like we are guessing like crazy. It's something we can show
But
evidence
but
for.
you are guessing like crazy for the first cell, and that can't be proven in any natural environment anywhere. But you still believe it happened.
Actually, what
we
you
do
said about
have-
the wheel is interesting, Luca.
Yeah.
Because you admitted that we're not crazy, we're not doing some crazy guessing or anything. It just seems to be the best explanation. Why do you not see God as being the same thing, or some sort of let's say it's not God, let's say it's aliens, right? Created life, seeded life on this planet. Why is that not the best explanation, given the complexity
Show
of
me
life?
an alien corpse and we can talk about it.
Say again.
Show me an alien or at least his corpse and we can say something about it.
So
Show us
Luca,
a cell that can form naturally. Show us a cell that can form naturally.
So
Well,
Luca,
we
you
do
want
have fossil microorganisms in the Precambrian, so it's not like we do not
so
have
That
any
doesn't
evidence.
explain abiogenesis. No, that doesn't explain how a cell got here.
so Luca, you want us to call God here to show you and say, hey, God, come here, and he says, okay, and he comes here. Is that what you want to see?
As I said, it does not need to do something so spectacular, but it can if it
Well,
is God.
but the
But
thing is,
I will just need to for God if it exists and have those
well, the
qualities.
thing is, he already did come and did show himself to everybody, and people either believed or didn't believe, anyways.
Yep.
And he
That's
says,
right.
"You're not going to see me. You're not going to see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord."
Yep.
I have a question about that. It's just I'm curious about it. If a God exists and he wants to show himself to whole humanity, why he do not appear right now? We
He made
have
the heavens.
cameras everywhere. We can
Well, like I said, right?
show
He made the
evidence,
stars.
a lot of it. Right now, back then was quite hard to obtain evidence. So why not? Why not now? We are waiting for
Well,
2,000 years. You can send
another thing,
someone else, no?
He
is
did
that
already, and he left his word.
he wants
He left.
true followers. He wants true believers. He doesn't want all these fake followers and fake believers that are corrupt and impure and everything, and don't want to have a change of heart.
But you
Yeah,
know,
it's
I'll say
it's the spirit, Luca. It's a matter of finding that, finding the Holy Spirit. You find it through the Word, and when you find it and you gain that faith, that evidence. That's why faith is the, evidence of
evidence of things not seen. Oh, how does it
th-
go?
yeah. Thank you. I'm having a George Bush moment. Evidence of things unaccounted
Yeah,
for.
the evidence of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen.
Not
Yes,
seen.
yes. And so whenever you end up having that, and you have those self revelations and stuff, you understand, and it becomes so much more real. You realize that what we are is we're autonomous, meat bags that are controlled by a real spirit that is connected to another realm entirely. And when you realize what's actually real and stuff, it gives you a new perspective on what is going on. So really, I'm sitting here, I've had these experiences, these personal experiences, multiple ones. Again,
Same.
you have to try to
Yeah.
prove to me or disprove and show me how all of this could have come from nothing. And I don't feel that you've done that.
Well, because of belief, because we believe.
Have you read the
Yeah.
Bible, Luca?
And Luca believes in
I do.
abiogenesis. He has the same belief in something that has never been observed, but he thinks it will be in the future.
But
It's
I
not a
did
belief.
prove God. I
I
proved God
do.
because matter can't make itself, matter can't direct itself. So,
Exactly.
We do
that
not
is
know
your
what
evidence.
happened back
That's your
then.
scientific evidence of God right there.
It's not. We do not know what happened,
But you're
and
still
we
sure it was
cannot
a natural
infer
process,
if
right?
it was a God or not.
But it was still a
You
natural
can
process,
believe
right?
in it, but it's a belief.
Right. But it was still a natural process, right? Even though we don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Right.
God is not natural for
Of course, God
definition.
exists. I talked to him this morning.
So, Luca, have you read the Bible?
Yes,
How much of it have you read?
all of it. It's not like I remember everything, but I was a Catholic. I have a Bible, so I did read it.
Is that like the Protestant canon or the Catholic canon? Like, did you read like Maccabees and Second Maccabees?
Maccabees, I do not remember that. And I think it was Catholic canon, of course. I was a Catholic.
You know what the
So-
Apocrypha is, Luca?
I don't know if he needs to, but
I mean, I'm just being.
I don't know if a Catholic would know that it's called that.
Yeah. Do they read the Bible?
Yes,
I think, isn't it
it's quite
separated?
rare, to be fair, because
Even in a Catholic
if
Bible,
you
isn't
are
it? Aren't
Catholic,
those books separated?
Well,
you
no.
will go to mass and
I
listen
asked the
to a
question,
priest.
but I already knew the answer when I asked the question, though. So
What was your question, Jungle?
whether they read the Bible.
Oh yeah.
They do. It's not as common, of course. You need to be quite curious about it. Catholics tend to just listen to priests, but it's
Right.
not like it's just for Catholics. That
Luca, what's the best scenario for abiogenesis? What do you think's the best scenario so far?
what do you mean? Best scenario?
For the origin of life.
Yeah, you mean a specific scenario?
Yeah,
In the
specific
Earth?
hypothesis, whatever you think came first, metabolism first, RNA world, peptide world, panspermia.
Yeah.
God.
Okay,
believe-
panspermia, I think it's not that likely. It's possible to have some molecules from
But
outer
do you
space,
believe
for sure.
you would
But
have to
it's not
believe,
like,
Luca,
yes,
you would have to believe in infinite possibilities, right?
it's not like there are infinites. We have laws, so
Right. But
it's not like
in order to
anything can
believe,
happen right
in
now.
order to believe in abiogenesis and evolution, you would have to have infinite possibilities at your disposal, right?
No, Quite the opposite, because if you have laws and we do not know everything, I was explaining that before to Otangelo, we do not know how some things are even possible. We do not understand everything about chemistry or physics and so on and so forth. So maybe an explanation does exist and we simply do not get it.
We know
So
a
what do
lot
you,
about chemistry, and so we know stuff about how chemical bonds are formed and what causes them to form, when they're formed. And if you ignore all those things and you just take the flat probability, ignoring all of the rules behind chemistry, and you look at the simplest protein, which is something like 200 amino acids in length,
Wrong.
the probability, huh?
Proteins can be much smaller.
Yeah, the
You
average.
can have
Sorry, the
peptides
average is about
as
200,
well.
right?
Sorry?
What's the smallest you know of?
The
Two
what's the
amino
difference? You
acids.
can never get all the correct amino
There
acids.
are
What's the
called
difference?
peptides.
Sorry,
yeah,
what'd you
come
say,
on,
Luca?
hundreds.
Two amino acids. They are
Two?
called peptides, and they are quite interesting
Two amino
structure.
acids is a protein?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
they're
the small
signaling.
one.
They're
It's a
signaling
peptide.
proteins and stuff.
Okay. All right, so what do they do?
Signal
Quite a lot, actually. Sadly, I
control.
do know a person that has a problem with those prions, and he will die for it. They are quite interesting structure because they can reproduce, they can act like a virus, sort of.
They reproduce
They,
by themselves without outside catalysts?
yeah, it's quite interesting because they can. Um, it's not like they are reproducing as we are, of course, but they can basically infect other proteins and create other of themselves. And if you have a process
Wait,
like that in your brain, you will die, and it's not
okay,
very.
so you've got a two amino acid length protein,
Yeah,
and you are saying that it replicates itself, or are you saying that it interacts with something else and replicates
yeah,
because it
it has
interacts with the other thing?
replicated with interaction, of course.
So did you say it does have to interact with something else?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the length of the protein that it has to interact with for it to replicate?
Other proteins, for what I can understand, but I'm not a medic, of
Sure.
course.
Do you have any idea how long those are?
Well, very long, I think. But you cannot take the proteins inside our body. We are, if evolution is true, as I think it is, we are very evolved organism. It's like enter
Sure.
in a
I'm
night
not thinking about
after a
present day.
party and recreate everything it has happened there.
I'm going back to how this could possibly have started. So you say that there are two the smallest protein that we have is 2 amino acids in length, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But it apparently requires a much greater length of protein, a much greater complexity protein for it to replicate. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever length that is, that seems to be required. Otherwise, the 2 amino acid length proteins would just do nothing. They need the longer
It's not
protein.
like you have a single link between two amino acids and then that's it. You can have longer proteins in nature too. You can synthesize those. It's not like you need something to be alive to create a protein.
But you need
Of
a
course,
longer protein.
yeah. Sorry.
You need a longer protein
Yeah,
to
but
replicate
you
the small
can get
protein.
there.
So are you suggesting that these 2 amino acid length proteins are probably the first proteins that existed?
No.
or is it the one that
Well, it's
can
possible
replicate those?
that there were two. In prebiotic chemistry, I think that you will find a mess of compounds, proteins, amino acids. I think that it's not like
Yeah, that's
there
total.
was
That now that's a bit of a stretch, man. That you're gonna
Well,
find all that on the early Earth.
if you
We
need a
can pull it.
longer one, if the one protein needs a longer one, and that needs a longer one, and that needs the longer one of DNA itself, then you still
we
have a
need to
problem.
figure out how first organism even worked, because it's
The
not like they
ribosome.
were like we are
The
now.
ribosome is really the big thing.
But not whole cells or organisms do have those. So
Not all organisms have ribosomes, you're saying?
well, viruses for sure not. But of
What do
course,
not?
viruses
Well,
Oh,
are
viruses.
not.
Yes.
yeah, but
They
viruses
would
are
need a host.
do not
replicating.
live in you.
But you can have form of life or proto-life without a cell.
But
I
viruses
think you can find the example for that.
viruses require something else, right? Like
Viruses, yes, but there are not only the only form of organism without a cell, for what I can remember.
can we
But
agree
I'm
that
not an
viruses
expert
are
on that. I need to prepare a little with it. Guys,
Has a
I
virus ever
do need
evolved
to
into
go.
anything other than a
It's
virus?
5, almost 40 in the morning, and I really need to sleep.
Luca, you want to have another debate on SFT? I sent him a
Yeah.
message.
Yes, I would love so.
We'll get into more of the details.
Yeah, we
I wanted to
wanted
get
to.
into the RNA world with you. Some of the.
I already said that.
Okay.
It's okay
All right.
with
Let
you.
me know. Email. All right.
Yes.
We wanted to grill you.
Sorry?
We wanted to
There's too
grill
many
you.
of
You know what that means? Grill.
them.
It
Yeah.
means
I don't
Real
wanna-
to
Gotta go
cook
to bed.
like meat?
I gotta go.
yeah, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Don't worry about it. I'm
just
quite
joking.
tough. I think I did hold up quite good. So it was a pleasure. I did lost Otangelo when he left the stream, but it was a good debate, and I'm happy to add that discussion with him. It was really fun.
Luca,
LPP, it was a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome.
we-
Thanks for joining us. And in spite of the folks inside chat thinking we're just ganging up on you, I appreciate you, unlike some people, having the CO Jones to come in and have conversations. So I appreciate you as always for joining and for taking the time to engage in the conversation. Even though we disagree, I do appreciate you being willing to get into the fray.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Good night, folks. It was a
good night,
blast.
Luca.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
See ya, Luca.
All right, real quick. I'm destroying Jamie in chess right now while trying to talk with Luca, and I've got to check. I got to checkmate his ass real quick. There we go. Jamie challenging me to chess in the middle of a live stream. Thinks he's gonna give himself an advantage. Is that what's
I
up?
gotta
Jamie?
learn. Gotta learn. I want to learn.
What you'll learn is that if John is playing chess, he's not paying attention to the stream.
Oh, I
Well,
can.
no.
I,
No, I was paying attention to the stream. That's why I was playing. He challenged me. I'm on my phone. Like I'm on doing the stream on my computer, but I had my phone, and he challenges me to a game of chess. So we're sitting there while Luca has been talking. You and with you, Bob and Jungle, you guys are going back and forth. He and I have played like 6 or 7 games of woman at chess. And
What?
Then, and then Luca's like, "Oh, I'm like, "Oh man, Luca's leaving." I go, so I'm sitting there still trying to play.
yeah, the game was already over, but yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't almost over. I was running out of time.
I mean, it was over in the sense that I had already. There's no way I could win, even if I was good. I mean, you'd already. It was come and gone. It was a foregone conclusion just by what you'd already done. That's what I meant.
Yeah, but if I hadn't checkmated you and run out of time, you would have won.
That's true.
So I wasn't going to
Well,
let you get a freebie like that.
No, I know. It's ridiculous. You're like, what, 1,500 now or something? I'm like, I've gone up a little bit, but it's hard, man. I need to study it more.
Yeah, you're at 8 something. Yeah, in bullet, I usually range in bullet chess. I usually range between high 16s to like high 17s, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I have gone up like probably 100 or 150 since we last talked, but like, yeah, I'm just trying to break 900 now. So,
Now, bullet chess is tough, man. Like being able to, I mean, like usually, whatever you're rating at bullet chess, like I think the usual expectation is like in normal chess, like speed, you're usually like 200 to 300 points higher in rating.
in bullet chess, you were higher or the other?
No, playing bullet chess, your rating is lower than what you would be in like normal time chess, because just
bullet chess like fast or something.
Yeah, it's 1 minute game. It's it. It's got 1 minute. If you run out of time, you lose. If you run out of time before they do, you lose. And it's a 1 minute game. 1 minute.
So like so like John gets a minute and you get a minute.
Yeah. When it starts and stops when you move. So if the longer you wait, you run out of more time. So it's like forces you to play fast.
Whoa.
Yeah, like basically for bullet chess, if you're any good at it, you're making your move in less than a second. Otherwise, you're toast.
Like when the best people play it, it's just like it's retarded.
Yeah, it gets like I'll play games where there'll be 50 moves for the game and plan up, but usually in like I checkmate a significant percentage of the people I play in bullet chess. There's a lot of people that I call them pawn pushers, where they don't actually know how to play the game. They just like move pieces around and try to play the time factor.
Like me.
And well, no, you don't qualify as a pawn pusher. The pawn pushers are the ones that they usually are okay at defense, but then they just make the most bizarre moves to try and throw you off, because like when somebody does something like, okay, so normally I can anticipate what my opponent's move is going to be based on analysis of the board, right? So unless they do something completely whacked out, usually it's just a quick confirmation and like making sure that it's the best move I can make at the time, right? But pawn pushers will just do like completely whacked out crap, knowing that you're probably anticipating the move, and then they'll do something completely bizarre, which either makes you slow down and waste time, or you make the move you had already kind of committed to beforehand, thinking there's no way anybody could be this bad to make what this crazy move is, and then it turns into a blunder, and sometimes give the other person an advantage because it's really obnoxious.
That's what I want you to help me with, because I can see clarity starts to like come as you get better, play better people, right? Because I'm constantly playing people as I get better, they're better, and then you get beat, and like it seems obvious to me, or it seems probable to me, let's say, that like there's a moment like 5 or 6 moves in where it's probably clear that like you've already won, it seems to me, like, and then it probably makes really weird and pointless mistakes that you can see, and so you got to help me, you got to point those out to me.
Yeah, do you ever go and do like the game analysis?
Yeah, I've started to a little bit, but I need to like, I don't play regular chess and like look at the book moves. I haven't really looked at that at all. I really am just kind of like a ADD player or whatever. So
no, what I'm saying is like, what I'm saying is like you hit like the game report at the end of a game.
Yeah. I've done that, and like you can see the analysis. Then you can go through the moves and see where you're.
Yeah, but like key moment. I think key moments is the best thing to go through, because it gives you like the opportunity to like look at the move at that particular point and then do an analysis.
You can redo it, right? Like you can play it, like replay the game from that point, I think.
Right, and figure out what was the best move. I think that's very advantageous. And then also, I think, do you do chess puzzles?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I just started doing them, and that's what kind of like has bumped me up a little bit. Anyways, like things I wasn't seeing. It seems like it's like I got an AI in it or something. It kind of helps show you where you're making mistakes a little bit. Does that seem right? It seems like when I play puzzles, I'm
Yeah, but
missing.
it also forces you to like start to get a lot of the pattern recognition, which is
Exactly.
extraordinarily advantageous, especially in bullet. Well, it's in all chess, but especially in bullet.
Yeah, that's
Because
helped
then
me
you're
a
being
lot.
able to like, oh, you instantly recognize a position, and then you immediately know what the next like 6 moves are going to be. And
Right. Especially that's helped me like go up like 100 or so points just from doing it like probably an hour. So yeah, that really helps.
Yeah,
But
like I just passed. I've solved. I think it's 17,500 and something chess puzzles.
Wow. Yeah. I've played almost 5,000 games, I think, of bullet chess now. But one thing I noticed too, or what I was gonna say, I think on the puzzles I'm about 1,300 right now. Like whatever, just I know you just build up and they're more complicated or whatever. But
Nice.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure. What is the highest it goes? Like, don't they have like a daily puzzle that's kind of like
Yeah, there's daily puzzles too. Like for like the normal chess puzzles, I'm currently at 2132 in rating, but I've gotten up to as high as like 2,300 in chess puzzles. But
how old is this game again?
Huh?
Chess?
Yeah, when was it invented?
I think it's over 1,000, like 1,000 years ago now.
And it seems like I've heard that they don't know for sure or something maybe, but they know it's at least so old or something. Maybe that's wrong.
The early forms of chess originated in India around the 6th century AD.
India, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What century?
6th.
You got to do a stream with me, John, and go over the puzzles and just give some advice and maybe play a few games and then point out a few things because I still make blunders all the time. So,
Germania Inside Chat says, "I may join I may join in a few minutes just to change the damn topic of chess."
It's fun. You should do it. I think it's probably good for you. Good for the mind.
There are other board games to talk about.
Yeah, Kelby says, "Yeah, how much money have you lost playing chess?" So I actually, I have lost money playing chess before, but the only time I ever lost for money is so this is like 4 or 5 years ago. I had this harebrained idea that I thought would be just ridiculously entertaining to go down on Broadway here in Nashville and like set up a table and like play all the ridiculous amount of like tourists in Nashville, right? And actually this idea originally sparked from I was driving down 2nd Avenue and I saw this dude had a chessboard out. There's a couple guys out there. I pulled over, hopped out of the car and came over and played. Oh no, man, we're playing for money, bro. We're playing for money. I'm like, okay, cool. How much you playing for? So I sat down, beat the dude for $20. He flipped out, threw his board, it turned into this whole crazy thing. Anyway, from that, I was like, oh man, this would be too much fun to do. So I researched the law to make sure that like if I wanted to like bet people that I couldn't get arrested because there's like cops everywhere on Broadway, right? So I had researched the law. There's like ironically, the state attorney general of Tennessee had actually written an opinion on gambling versus games of skill under Tennessee law, and chess was actually specifically notated in this brief that it was a game of skill and not subject to gambling law. So I'm like, sweet, I'm golden, right? So I head down there, and first weekend I was having a grand old time, made some money. I didn't make a ton of money, but I made some money. It was fun. I had a good time. And then the second weekend I go down there, and I've been sitting down there for like an hour. I played like 3 or 4 people, and this cop walks up, and the second he watches somebody like hand me cash, he like comes over and tells me, okay, I see you're gambling, you're shut down, like you best get out of here, all this kind of stuff. So we get into this whole back and forth, and I'm like, dude, I know the law. I'm not gambling. Like, this is not gambling. It's a game of skill. It's a contest. I'm not subject to gambling law. You cannot arrest me. Well, we get this whole back and forth. He tells me if I don't leave, he's gonna, I'm getting arrested. So I'm like, well, I'm not ready to, even though I think I'll win this, I'm not ready to go spend the weekend in the clink. And I also had my little dog with me. So I'm like, man, I don't know what happened to my dog. Like, am I going to call somebody and be like, yeah, so I'm going to jail for playing chess? And I couldn't bring myself to do it. So
sue the city, though.
That said, however, I did go trundling up to there's like a weekend judge that does all like the warrants for all the freaking drunk idiots to get arrested in Nashville. So I went up to, they have this little side building. So I go up there and like demand to be able to speak to the judge. And they're like, what? I'm like, yes, I have a cop who has threatened to arrest me if I don't leave. So since I don't think I'm breaking the law, I want a review from the judge who would be the one who signs the freaking warrant this cop might, want to issue against me. So I want you to review it and make sure I'm not wrong on the law. So the judge is like, this is so, I've never had this happen before. So sure, come on up. So I showed the judge the opinion of the attorney general, a couple of different statutes that were applicable to this. And the judge like said, oh yeah, well that's not breaking the law. You're fine. I was like, okay, cool. I want a ruling. I want you to like state that in writing that I'm not breaking the law. Well, I can't do that. I was like, send me an email then. Like you just said that I've been threatened with arrest from police. I want this deal. So, okay. So she sends me an email. I then trundle down to like the FedEx store, print out the email from the judge, the opinion from the attorney general, and the statutes in question.
You don't have a printer, John? You don't have a printer?
This is a weekend, dude. I'm downtown. I'm not going home to print all this stuff out.
Oh, okay.
So I never went home. This is like, dude, I literally left Broadway from being threatened with arrest, drove up to the judge, got this done. Then I drove over to the FedEx, printed out the stuff, taped it to my table, and then went straight back to Broadway.
Oh, I see. You wanted to get you were getting this.
Oh, dude, I wanted the challenge to have. I wanted the cop to come back and screw with me and be like, read the freaking thing. So I set back up and sure enough, like 30 minutes later, cop shows back up. Man, I told you, I warned you. I was like, man, you might want to go get your sergeant or your lieutenant before you make a mistake, buddy. He's like, what? I'm like, I insist that before we go any further, you get your superior down here to review this, because I think you're about to make a major mistake you're going to regret. And so he calls the sergeant, lieutenant, whatever. I come over and he's like, what's going on? I'm still sitting in my chair. And he's like, what's going on, guys? And the cop's like, this guy's gambling. I caught him earlier. Now he left. Now he's back thinking he's going to get away with this. Yeah. I was like, no, actually, why don't you read the papers that are taped to my table? And then we'll see if you're going to proceed any further. So the higher ranking officer comes over. He like looks over. He's like reading the stuff. And he gets done. He kind of looks at me, looks at the other cop, and he's like, let's go. And they walked off and didn't say another word.
That is awesome.
Like, oh man, I actually still have that table, and I still have those pieces of paper taped to it. If I ever decide to get
you made that up, dude. You made it all up.
Yeah, I can go get that shit out of my freaking storage unit and take a picture of it. How much you want to bet, buddy?
No, I bet nothing. Make a video
anyway,
of that, man.
But that was like 5 years ago. It was one of like the craziest little 2 weekends of crazy entertainment that I had. But what's up, Danny? Welcome to the stream, man. You were on camera, then you left. I rambled too much in my story. He's off hiding.
I'm here. How are y'all? I'm glad to see you stream again. I put that in the chat earlier. Yeah. I was getting worried.
I appreciate it. You messaged me the other day. I appreciate that. How much more time do you have before winter break?
This is my last week. I finished grad school though for the semester, so I did that. So I just gotta do work stuff for a week. Nice. You got any plans for the vacay time, or are you just gonna be recovering? Mostly recovering. My wife is always very busy during this month because she's a violinist, and they always like to hire her for Christmas stuff.
Of course.
So she's going to be very busy. So I'll be free, more free than usual.
That's cool. She's a violinist. I didn't know about that.
Yep. She's a professional violinist. She has a doctorate degree in violin performance. So.
Wow, that's crazy.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, Danny significantly outkicked his coverage on that one.
That's true. I'll take that.
She knows how to tune the thing, at least, anyway.
I used to play the violin. That's one of the first things that we were able to talk about when we started dating.
Oh, so that's how we did it. Okay.
That's what it started.
Had the commonality of playing the violin, which obviously just violin in and of itself is so difficult. that puts you in a whole other stratosphere.
Oh, that's interesting that you know that. It is a very difficult instrument.
Yeah, my niece
You go crazy.
is
learn
a
My
violinist.
my son started playing the viola, I think is
Yeah,
what it's
viola.
called. Yeah.
She plays the viola too.
You
And
broke
then
it.
COVID hit, and then it kind of just
Yeah,
fell
COVID
apart.
took a big toll on our finances because students stopped meeting with her.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't finance. Well, for us, it wasn't finances. It was like
avoiding-
everybody wants to homeschool, and we thought it was best to homeschool.
Oh, I thought you were talking about COVID because like what happened was a lot of students stopped seeing her because of COVID precautions.
Yeah, not on our end. So like we were renting to own the viola that he was learning, and he played it for that school year, and he could play it. Like I played in band when I was a kid. I think I got pretty good with the tuba. And so he was showing that he was. I don't want to say he was like amazing or anything, but he was showing that he had a proficiency with the instrument. He was gaining in skill, and then COVID hit, and we put him in homeschool, and then he was, you're not going to band because you're staying at home. So then we cut it off. It's kind of a bummer.
Danny is David Chalmers says he's an atheist dualist, right?
Bob, where have you been? Yeah, I am an atheist dualist. But Bob, where have you been? I haven't seen you. You've been just as absent as LPP, if not more.
I've been elsewhere.
He's on a sabbatical, learning about open theism.
Oh, are you? Are you still an open theist?
Yeah.
Nice. There's been a whole thing about because of this debate between James White and William Lane Craig, like the whole community. Yeah, the whole community is like talking about this. I don't know what happened to the Christian community. Suddenly, OSAS became this huge topic. And it's not just within the people that we know here, like Standing with Truth and Smokey and all these people, but even outside of these communities, I don't know what triggered this OSAS.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
What happened?
It's weird. It spreads like that, man. I've noticed that too.
Yeah, it's like it happens in different academic circles. Like in philosophy, there might be all the rage might be one particular topic.
Oh God!
Oh no!
Yeah.
Hey, so Danny, I'm gonna need you to not say that ever again, because Praise, Smokey, and Standing for Truth are going to claim that they were the catalyst for what is now sweeping the globe in argument. And listen, they all have enough ego between the three of them that we don't need to expand their heads anymore. Is all I gotta say.
Are you noticing the same trend, LPP? Like everyone was talking about
I am unfortunately aware. Yes, I'm aware of it. I have been refusing to engage with the myopic, moronic, juvenile delinquency of intellect that has been going on inside of the YouTube community. It's one of the reasons I've kind of stayed out of it and haven't been around as much for this past month, because I'm like, I am refusing to get involved with that stupidity. I mean, it's like people can have differences of opinion, but what it's degenerated into is beyond the pale. Like, just I don't want to engage in that crap. So one of the reasons I've been busy as heck doing other stuff too. But I was like, you know what, I'm not getting involved in this. And even if I come on and do streams completely separate from it, certain clown shows will insist that I need to be, even if I don't say anything about it, that somehow that means that I am taking a definitive position in favor of one or the other, even if I don't even say a word. Hence some of the community posts that have been referencing me when I have not engaged a single freaking time in this stuff, and they've been claiming that I am somehow doing so. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Did you see Pine Creek talk smack about y'all?
I did. It was kind of interesting how Pine Creek put me in the same category as Praise and Gavin.
I posted.
And then what did he say? He said that all of y'all were young Earth creationists, but I think the three of y'all actually probably care less about that issue than
Praising Gavin.
Well, no. So Gavin is hardcore Old Earth.
Old Earth, right? Yeah.
Praise
kind of
flip-flops, but I think he's currently Gap Theory.
Yeah, but he doesn't talk about like young Earth creationism. And then
wait, hold on. Praise and gap theory. It's not the common. Well, as far as I understand, it's not the common gap theory where
that's
people
not what we're
get
talking
confused
about. Okay, look, what we're talking about is the fact that when someone asked what were they interested in, what is LPP, Gavin, and Praise interested in, like what do they do on their channels? They said mostly young Earth creationism, but that's just like that's not what any of them do at all, right? Like that was the point of what I was saying. And I mean, isn't that true? I mean, am I wrong? Like I was like, oh, that's not what they do. Like,
well, no, trust me. When I saw Jamie's like little clip, I was like, this guy is number one. He's just spewing things. Number two, when he put my name into that association, he's obviously still butthurt for me calling his ass out 6 months ago for trying to manipulate his own stupid followers and audience in relation to the what's your favorite argument in favor of God, and then the when all of those apologists were in the same room, that question was asked, and they listed off their favorite arguments, and he's like, why didn't they say it was the resurrection of Jesus? Do they not believe in Jesus? And it's like, yeah, dude, they're all classical apologists. And it was a question about the existence of theism, not the Christian God specifically. So if you're talking to people who actually understand this and like professional, in many cases are professionally arguing this stuff, do you not think that they have their like foundational arguments from a theism perspective that then they build upon to get into the Christian God? Like, hello, you've debated certain members in that group that he was calling out. He has personally debated, because I've watched the debates, and had this exact conversation. And in his debate with IP Mike Jones, they went down this exact rabbit hole. Pine Creek acknowledged what Mike Jones was arguing, and then Mike Jones even said, "Now, once I get past the theism position, then my favorite argument would be the resurrection of Jesus." It's like, so Pine Creek had zero excuse, and then fast forward to his little pontification where he edited the video to make it look all crazy, and then goes on this whole rant about how it means they're not confident in their arguments. It's like,
I guess
get the hell out of here, bro. You're full of crap, and you're taking it.
I started.
Let me jump in if I could real quick.
Hang on.
The
vast majority, dude, shut the hell up. The vast
all right,
majority,
I'm out of here.
Bruce, you don't have to leave. Just, I'm finishing a point. I'm sitting here talking, Bruce. Bruce, you're welcome to come back in, dude. Just when I'm finishing a sentence, don't talk over me. And then when I say, hey, I'm almost done, don't keep talking. Like, this is not the complicated, Bruce.
He's sensitive.
Is this your channel, John? Come on.
I'm pretty sure it is. And Bruce, like I said, dude, I'm almost done. If you want to come back in and have conversation, please do. But in the interim, you're let me, when I go on a rant, when I haven't done a freaking stream in a month and a half, and I go on my first rant, and you're gonna interrupt me, like, that's gonna happen. Anyway,
long story short, your second rant?
No, it's my first rant.
No, I'm just gonna have the clip mic'd up here if you want to.
I'll just mute myself.
The clip of what Danny was talking about with you and
Bruce. I tried a number of times and not standing for it. Take care, Bruce. You had literally been in the stream for maybe 5 minutes. Like, Bruce, come back in the stream.
Yeah,
we'll coddle your little balls that are obviously shrinking up in, or you can act like a man and let them drop back down, and you can come back in and have a conversation. Like,
oh, he's definitely coming back now, right?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he needs to go play his guitar or something, and
calm
down. I mean, Bruce, I thought we've been at a truce for quite some time now. I don't have an issue with you. Just come back in, let people finish sentences. Don't talk over them when they're in the middle of finishing a thought, and then you can engage. It's not that complicated. Anyway.
You always share when people come in too. You always make time. It might take a minute, but you always are on top of that. So.
Oh, do you hear that? Jamie just said you ramble, but okay, go ahead, LP.
No. I just mean
it might take a minute.
It's just more like just I like to hear what he has to say.
Discord.
Well, Germania, yes, we do know. We know you have little balls because you've been inside chat since basically the beginning of this stream, and you keep talking about how you're going to join. And what day of the week is it right now? It's Saturday. So you don't have work, so you have no excuse. I doubt your girlfriend is over because you have your little balls, and
That's why he's growling.
she knows they haven't recharged yet. So get in here and have some conversation, Germania.
Anyway, I wanted to say, do you want to finish your rant before I interrupt?
No, go ahead. I'm done.
No, but Pancake and I are becoming friends. Like we started out horrible, but now we're becoming really amicable with each other. He made me a mod in his chat and everything.
But I saw your first interaction with him where you guys kind of went at it.
Not good. It was definitely not good. And so, but after understanding, like, even though I discussed with him, like sometimes you just got to do the work to understand what I'm saying. But after understanding where he's coming from, because there are a lot of people that kind of take what, peanut butter could have a mind, that stuff like that, right? That kind of turns people off to what I'm saying. So, I could see that. So I've been taking a slightly different approach, and it's been more fruitful.
Now, where was that, Danny, with the peanut butter thing? I was
here. It was here. God help me, he's so mad. He kicked me out.
Right.
It was here.
Oh well. Do you want to play that clip, or should I just let it go?
This is Steve clip.
The 12 days of Christmas instead the 12 days of apologetics.
We can't hear it.
Christmas, my pastor
Trying to turn it up, but I can't.
Kalam cosmological argument, but it would always end with. But it would always end with, how's it end? A partridge in a pear tree. It'd be a personal experience for me. So basically, all these arguments, manuscripts, and ontological arguments, but it always ends up with the personal experience. And that's
wait for it.
Hey, we got a chat. Brian Stevens, I noticed, says both Pine Creek and Myth Vision are too afraid to speak of Gavin H and Praise I Am. I don't know either one.
I do. I can lump them all in one basket. So Praise That I Am, Gavin, what's his name? John Maddox, who, you know who John Maddox is?
John Maddox. Is it? Oh, is that him?
Yeah, that's him there.
Never seen the guy.
Pure badass.
Yeah. Oh, like they're at the bottom of the barrel.
Really? What do you mean by that? Like Darth Dawkins?
I don't know if I can say this without looking like a schmuck. I mean, it's like beating up on the slow kids at recess type.
You can't even keep up. What are you talking about?
I don't even know. I don't know these people. So
yeah.
At the end of the day, if it's like, what kind of apologetics do they do? Is it like way worse than what we see?
Mostly young Earth creationist stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so horrible.
They'll do philosophical arguments. They'll do a lot of reading and spout a lot of garbage, but as far as having the ability to think, no, that's not present in that group of people.
Well,
really? Hey, John, have you seen any of Ian Juby's stuff?
Open the mouth and talk is easy. Yeah, I watched it today.
I have not recent stuff, but yeah, I have seen some of his stuff in the past.
Man, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, the frog thing. Have you seen that one?
I've heard of it before, yeah.
That was amazing. I mean, how long do you think a frog can live in, freezing temperatures before being unable to resurrect, essentially?
Or a solid rock.
Isn't there like a thing where they find frogs inside of rocks or some weird idea?
Yeah.
Like that? Yeah, and there's some types of frogs can like literally freeze solid, and then they just thaw out later on. And there's like some types of turtles that, normally turtles breathe, right? There's certain types that go underwater and go into like a quasi hibernation, but then during that time frame, they actually breathe through their skin. It they have a way to like filter out oxygen from the water and like just bring it in through their skin. It's freaking amazing.
Life finds a way, bro.
Well, there's actually frogs that can breathe through the skin too, because there's one frog in a fast-moving stream. He lost his ability to even have functional lungs, or something to that effect.
Oh, Bruce just apologized. He said he was lagging.
Yeah, no, I just responded back to him. The Bruce, you're welcome to come back in. No drama. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So Danny, do you agree with Pine Creek that I cannot think?
No, I don't agree.
Yeah, Pine Creek is interesting. I think I've had three direct interactions with him. I think I'm pretty sure he's butthurt because in 2 of the 3, I kicked him out after he was being a complete tool and a sardonic little jackass and acting like a 5-year-old.
Sardonic. There's a good word.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know why people take that guy seriously. To be honest, Danny, I don't know
Somebody
why.
Google the definition.
What, a sardonic?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, Bruce? Welcome back, man.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, I'm having lag, so I apologize for that. But I tried to jump in earlier a couple times, and I was trying to wait till you were done with what you were saying and jump in quick to let you know before the next person started again. Right? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's always a thing. That's always the thing with online. There's always some form of lag, even if it's just milliseconds, and it changes so much about a conversation.
Yeah.
And by the way, Bob, so like sardonic is being like super snarky. It's like you can be also sarcastic. You can be like sardonically sarcastic.
I put the definition in the share there.
Oh, you did. But I personally think that Pine Creek epitomizes sardonic. Just the way, like everything he's the way he talks, the questions he asks, it's with that. I mean, he can't even cover up the little smirk he always has. You know, when he's asking the questions, he's not actually being serious in his dialogue. You know, he try to claim that he is, but then it's like his responses are like in many cases childlike or just smart ass, and there's not there's not real discourse.
I understand.
But there was a stream where he did come in. It wasn't the last one. It was like a few, like maybe even last year or the beginning of 2021. But where he was being I think he was being genuine. I think that I think he was mostly talking with others. He wasn't talking with you as much, LPP. But I don't know. I think there are cases where Pine Creek is being very genuine. And
let's put in different context then, Danny. Is it within the realm of possibility there are rare occasions when Pine Creek is being genuine? Probably.
Yeah, but that's what I'm.
Is that the common approach that he's taking? Please don't tell me you actually think that's the common, most likely position and attitude that he's going to take.
Well, I'm saying that it's not as rare as you think. I don't think it's rare that he's being genuine.
Well, it's because he is that person, isn't it? Like he is trenchant, mordacious.
Until he's not gaining the upper hand.
But I listen to him a lot, right? So maybe and I don't know if you only interact with him here, and then we might have 2 different perspectives. But he does have. I know what you're talking about. The kind of like smirky, like 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 kind of almost like a jokester demeanor. I get that sense, and I got that sense in the beginning. But I don't think that makes him disingenuous, though.
He's cynical.
That's his only tactic. He doesn't have any other tactic.
Okay, so Danny, if you're operating from a sarcastic and sardonic perspective and asking questions that are presented in a sarcastic and sardonic manner, and then use every effort to try and present and to reframe the conversations to be completely ludicrous, right? But aren't actually asking genuine questions or responding to answers in a genuine fashion, and you just continue to be more and more sarcastic with it. how is any of that remotely genuine?
Yeah, I would
When-
agree that if
I mean,
he's,
I've watched quite a few of his streams, and
Okay.
I've interacted with him on several occasions. And every single occasion that I've observed him, that's exactly what he's been doing every single time. So
Oh.
can there be exceptions? Maybe, but I would argue that his interactions with atheists are dramatically different than with a theist.
Yeah, maybe
And-
maybe I don't have that perspective because I'm not a theist, but I don't. What was the last thing you watched of this show? Did you watch the progressive Christian versus the conservative one? What's his name? McDowell versus this guy.
Sean McDowell?
Sean McDowell versus this
Yeah.
kind of pro LGBT.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but I have not seen that now.
You see, if you watch that now,
saw
he
part
is
of it.
very much giggly and like he loves the fact that these two that Christianity is like fighting within itself. Like he relishes in that, right? And I could see why some would take that to be, you know, like kind of like there's like a kind of sardonic aspect to the stream. But when he makes criticisms or when he attempts to make a point, or whether he makes it, whether valid or not, in other words, I think he's being genuine.
I mean, it's
in his belief.
Because you know he loves that stuff. Like when a conservative Christian and a progressive Christian argue about gay marriage, he relishes in that scenario, right? And I could see what you're talking about.
Why does he relish it? Like when you talk about a conservative Christian versus a progressive Christian, specifically about the issue that you just brought up, it seems to me one believes the Bible is true and the other does not.
Well, that's what they're disagreeing about, right? The progressive Christian thought that Dr. Sean McDowell was just wrong about how Christians should think of gay marriage and homosexual relationships, and even said that if he, I mean, you should. It's an interesting stream, right? And but the whole that was what's being contested, Bob. I don't know what you were originally trying to point to, though. We were talking about Pine Creek, right?
Well, you mentioned the two people that were fighting, Sean McDowell and some other guy that doesn't believe the Bible is true.
Oh, why Pine Creek would enjoy that? It's because it's like when I guess your intellectual enemies are fighting amongst each other. You know, that some people really like. That's how
it's a shame, right? That's a shame to Christianity, but. Like I think that anybody with a lick of sense can look at the two positions and say, okay, there's one position that is standing on this book that they believe in, and then there's another person who is not standing on that book.
Yeah, I mean that's a different topic, though, right? The point is that why does Pine Creek enjoy Christian infighting, right? At least in those cases, well, people.
That's part of it, yeah.
You know, and
So,
I'm just saying that in the same way that when people really enjoy me attacking other atheists, right? Christians really enjoy that, right? So,
well, I think the reason that we do is because they're on our side. But I'm curious, why does Pine Creek enjoy it so much? And
well,
I suspect it may be the same thing.
Politically, he might have a side. He might think that gay marriage is morally permissible, so he sides with the progressive Christian.
Well, why does he love it so much? Was kind of the question that was hinging in my mind.
I don't think I can give you a better answer than I did. Maybe there's something I don't know.
I suspect that it's because one of two things. Either he's really for gay marriage and stuff, and he just likes seeing people that agree with him, or he hates Christianity so much that he just enjoys seeing two people who claim to be Christians to fight.
It might be both.
It could be both,
that, generally speaking, he thinks religious belief is harmful, and I think that's my take from what you said, and I completely disagree with him. Like in this kind of general sense, obviously.
It's nonsensical to say that. Like, if you accept the Bible, if you take it, I mean, even if you're not like a dispensationalist and you just take it and say all of it is, you know, for everybody, none of the laws are bad. None of them.
Yeah, you're just wanting to argue the issue. I'm not presenting like arguments for why progressive Christianity is false. I'm just saying we're just kind of getting into Pine Creek psychology here, right? That I could see a Christian watching that video and coming off with a really bad taste, not liking Pine Creek, thinking of him as sarcastic and all this, kind of like taking all, like, I don't know, not considering the sort of suffering that Christians go through when they find that a lot of infighting within their religion. But but he was making arguments and points throughout the video. He was commenting on it. And I took that commentary to be genuine.
Okay.
Well, again, my point is that the extreme sarcasm and the juvenile attitude is the commonality. It's just because somebody can make a good point here and there doesn't change what the standard positions are. And that's the point I was making. And that's why I view him as a waste of time in many cases. Because when you actually try to like the stream, the last time he was on here, when I ended up kicking him off, and he wanted to ask questions and have dialogue. But then when people would counter, I even set it up so like I told everybody to shut up. We had timers going, and him and I think it was Sam we're having back and forth. And Sam would make a argument position, ask questions, and then he would make some stupidly moronic response and be like, I yield my time. I yield my time after like 4 seconds. And then, okay, then wouldn't actually answer any of the questions. Then, okay, Sam, your turn. So I'd restart the clock, go. And then, okay, Sam, your turn. I'd reset Pine Creek, your turn, reset the clock. And it'd be like a 4-word response. I yield my time.
Yeah, I get where you're coming. I mean, I had this
like,
thing.
Dude, that's like, dude, you're 50-something years old, and you're acting like you're chuckling, smirking, and being a jackass like you're an 11-year-old boy or 11 or 12-year-old boy in middle school. I used to we all have dealt with those kids when we were in middle school, right? Some people were those people, and some people never grew up. And Pine Creek is the 12-year-old middle school boy who never grew up. He lives in freaking, what is it from Peter Pan? He's off in Neverland. Yeah, that's Pine Creek. Okay, real quick. I know Bruce is being calm and quiet and probably not trying to jump in case of his lagging. So Bruce, if you have anything to say, you can let's everybody shut up. Let's let Bruce, if he wants to talk, he can jump in real quick.
Well, I just joined up because you guys were talking about instruments, and then when I came in, then you got onto the thing about all the fighting and arguing lately, and it's all I could really add is that's a darn shame.
What do you want to say about instruments? Because Danny was talking about the violin and his wife playing the violin, and my son playing the viola, and I play the tuba. What do you got?
What do you mean? What do I got? Oh no, I like instruments. I like guitars and stuff like that. And
did you play in band in like high school or?
No. I played in bands, but I never didn't play played in high school. But I mean, I just played mainly guitar and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, I have some violins and stuff, but whatever. But anyhow, cool stuff.
Can you play the violin?
I kind of. Just kind of. I mean,
I understand it's a lot different than a guitar.
Well, yeah, E, A, D, and G is going the opposite direction, and the violin's tuned in fifths instead of fourths. That's a big difference. And you have to learn how to use bow and vibrato and all that stuff, and how to proper intonation. And yeah.
The bow thing is one of the things that throws me off. Like
the what?
The
bow.
The bow thing, yeah. I don't really understand how that works.
Well, it's real weird when you start cutting bridges for fiddle players and they want it flatter so they can play double stops. And then, a violinist, obviously, you want a more rounded bridge, so they don't do that. And yeah, different, they're different.
I played a much simpler instrument. So, I think when I was in 7th grade, I believe, I looked at the guitar and thought that was something that I would want to do. And I remember trying it out. And I think ultimately, really, the reason I chose the tuba is because I knew that my dad played it. And I kind of had a feeling that my dad wanted me to play the tuba because he played it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of why I picked that instrument. And it was, I always had fun playing the instrument.
Yeah, you get to play bass on a, and they're neat.
Yeah, it's kind of like compared to, say, the harmony or the higher pitched instruments, it's kind of boring in comparison. It's always like boom, 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 compared to like da 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 da.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's more notes per second kind of thing with the higher octave instruments versus the lower octave instruments.
Right. Maybe you could play funk tuba or something. I never thought of that.
I haven't even heard of that funk tuba.
No, I never heard of it either. Yeah,
someone needs to invent it.
Yeah.
Hey, so it's the fact that I'm a prophet is just been proven once again because Germania. I've had too much to drink, John. I probably shouldn't join. Didn't I say that earlier that he'd probably had too much to drink? I'm pretty sure I did. But come on, Germania. Come on, man. Come on in. The link is in the description. You know it's there.
Oh, I did have a question for you, LPP. Why do you
John.
think so many Christians watch Pine Creek's show?
John.
Sorry, what's up, Jungle?
My battery's running out, are going to run out in a little bit, and I just want to say that I'm going to have 2 discussions with David P. Neff on Thursday of this next week. One is going to be on the prophecy of Messiah, and the week later is going to be on the DNA haplogroup. So I just wanted to say that before my battery dies.
Awesome. Have you already scheduled those like on your? Do you have links you can put in the side chat, or is they're going to be coming up?
No, they'll be coming up, and it'll be on David Neff's channel, probably, as far as I know, or somebody's. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask LPV, why do you think so many Christians watch Pine Creek's show?
We want to help him out, but he's not listening very well.
Well, I would say that a portion of it comes from people thinking, okay, he's an intelligent individual. There's no way he actually believes the bovine scatology coming out of his mouth, and that I think a lot. You also have to remember that there's a lot of folks that come in, they listen, and they're like, "What?" and they like give it a little bit of like, "There's no way." They want to try and convince him, all that kind of stuff, and think that he's actually open to conversation and actually open to consideration of different things. Right. When the reality is he's not at all. Okay, and it's a game. It's a game for him at this point.
What sorts of things do you think he's like not like he's like spewing that he doesn't actually believe, or the arguments that he gives that he doesn't actually hold to? Like what specifically?
He doesn't have any arguments.
I was speaking more from a general sense. Like the vast majority of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is he may believe it at this point, but a lot of it is just it's fluffy crap that he convinces himself on, and then he convinces himself that people who respond and make arguments against it, such as myself, don't think. And if he operates from the perspective that somebody like me doesn't think, then it's very clear he's not actually analyzing any of this. A good portion.
He's making that up.
I think they're.
Yeah, I'm being rather a little bit sarcastic towards him right now in my what I'm saying too. But but back to your question, it's the same reason that I initially watched Atheist Experience and now really can't even barely stand it. Is when I came into YouTube, I've been operating in the business sphere for the previous 15 years, and when COVID hit, I came across this whole deal, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, what the heck am I listening to right now? This stuff is ridiculous. This is stupid. Am I actually hearing these arguments are they being serious right now? And, fast forward to now, it's like, yes, they are actually being either they're epic con men or they're actually being serious and actually believe the crap's coming out of their mouth.
Like, what's an argument that like just stuck out to you as like, oh my god, really? Like from Pine Creek, I guess.
From Pine Creek, I've ignored him for 6 months. I'd have to go back and like
I don't even know if
look
he
at all
has
his
an
stuff.
argument.
I've flushed the majority of his stuff.
But I also think he's very different from the atheist experience because when he lets callers in, he doesn't like hang up on them and he doesn't like berate them like the Dillahunties and stuff. Like I think that, for instance, if you went in, I think that he would treat you really well. I think he'd let you speak and get your point out.
Well,
like I think
no. Okay, so one of the things that he does, which is slightly different, is you're right. He will be somewhat nice and calm and speak in a very passive tone. And then once they leave, then he turns on the snark. Once they're gone and can no longer counter his.
Well, it's with certain people, like, you know who Canadian Catholic is?
Yes.
Yeah, like Pine Creek will turn up the snark like big time around him. But I think Canadian Catholic just, like kind of, you know, it.
Well, in some cases he deserves it, but like
Yeah.
because they go too far. But here's the thing: the similarity between him and Dillahunty, even though they do it in slightly different styles, is they don't actually want to know the underlying arguments and positions for their own talking points that they use to dismiss other people's arguments. And very often, a good portion of the people that they interact with can't actually extrapolate out the positions either. But at the same time, when somebody comes, it's just like with Dillahunty. When somebody does come across and call in or whatever that can back up their claims, or in to a much greater level than the average person, then very, very often you can observe a significant pivot in the attitude, the approach, and the willingness to engage when they start getting called out.
I would be very interested in you because he always opens his stream very interested in you trying to go on his stream and seeing how a dialogue goes. I would want to see how that goes. Maybe if
okay, I've had interactions with him, and on my streams, I have made significant attempts to allow massive amounts of open discourse, and to the point of literally making the entire room shut up and doing timed responses.
Yeah,
there was absolutely worthless waste of time. Even Dreschel and other atheists that were there said the same thing. Like said it was completely ridiculous.
I guess this is the last.
Now, if somebody like Pine Creek wants to have a formal debate with timed responses and all that kind of stuff against me, I'm happy to do so. But I have no intention of, no desire to interact with him outside of a scenario where it's like, no, dude, let's have a formal discussion. I'm not going to play your BS street epistemology crap where you don't actually respond to anything. You never put forth your positions and just trying to turn it into an interrogation session where you never actually engage in actual dialogue. And which is what, like, that's why I don't want to engage with him, because it's all he does. He's done it 3 different times on my channel. I watched him do it on his all the time. He doesn't actually engage in conversation. It's answering. It's an answer question with question every single time. I've called him out multiple times on answering questions with questions, and then he answers the question with a question. Are you going to do this time? Well, it's another question. It's like, what the hell is the point of this? I mean, the street epistemology stuff from the atheists, it's like there is zero intention of actually having discussion.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus answered questions with questions, right? Sometimes asking questions. I mean, it just depends.
Danny, stop defending Pine Creek when it comes. Do you actually think that Pine Creek really puts forth his positions on things without them being like his toenails being extracted while there's bamboo shoots under his fingernails? Like, come on, man. Like, let's.
No, I don't. Look, you and I had the same view about him when I first met him, but then as I got to know him and I changed my approach, the relationship has greatly improved. And so I'm saying that maybe there's a way that to approach Pine Creek, and I think he does answer questions very directly. When I ask him questions, he's answered them directly. But I don't know. I think that you should give him. I think you should go on his stream and see what happens. I think it would be, at least for my entertainment.
Yeah, I'm not here for your entertainment, Danny.
Oh,
If,
but that's
I saw Pine Creek have a discussion with Jill. With Jill posted a video of his discussion with them maybe last week. I wasn't really impressed at all with the way he was handling the conversation at all.
Who,
I don't
Jill
really-
or Pine Creek?
Pine Creek. I wasn't impressed with the way he was handling the conversation with Jill.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, like a significant. Again, I'm Danny. You're usually the outlier in this. Every once in a while, late night, you turn into this, but a significant percentage of the supposed influencers of the atheist community on YouTube, they don't actually have detailed conversations, and they won't go down the rabbit holes. I mean, it's not really worthwhile to engage in some of this stuff.
Alex Cott put Porn Creek.
Yeah. But anyway, what's up, Veckel? How you doing, man?
Doing good. Just doing some studying while I thought I'd pop in and say hello. I see Bob Argatha is in there. Agatha. Knew you were coming back. So long time to see. It's good to see you. He's probably away from his mic, but
I would Slavic's also join. What's up, Slavic? Good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I actually wanted a quick question over here because I actually didn't watch that debate, but I was wondering did they ever talk about since there was like chemistry, right? Did they ever mention where the information comes in chemistry, like specifically how molecules are built, where that information would come from if it's just evolution?
I don't think they touched on it in the debate, really. I mean, it was mentioned in not where it came from, but the having to account for it. I know Otangelo brought that up in his opening statement for sure.
Yeah, because that's what I'm kind of interested in. If there's any good arguments, because I haven't heard any specifically addressing that topic. That's really good.
Well, the unfortunate reality is the vast majority of the chemists that are working in origin of life research act like they don't have to account for that. You know, many of them recognize that it's there, but they don't feel like they actually have to account for how it would form and the formation of a communication system, a digital communication system. I mean, well, people that have listened to my channel for a while understand my rant. I've heard my rants on this many times, but it's like, if you don't even want to admit that you have to account for a digital information system, I mean, if you won't even address that as being a fundamental component you must account for, then in my opinion, what you're researching in relation to, origin of life is not actually research into origin of life. You're spinning around trying to be an alchemist, turning lead into gold. And
Minecraft evolved from a Pong program. Prove me wrong. But if you use any documented source that says that Notch was the creator, then that's a biased source.
Yeah. Well, and the complexity requirement of for self-replication. I mean, it's known that you have to have a self-reproducing automaton has to be a Turing machine. Like, you have to have a Turing machine in order for self-replication to be like plausible. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's like they recognize all this stuff. Like, you're not talking about trivial. Like, this isn't trivial from the mathematical sense. Like, you're talking about like a complex system that has to have greater, like the total sum of the information has to be greater than what is being replicated in order for the replication to take place. Like, this is nuts, man. Like, There's a reason that we know it's possible, but we're not out like creating self-replication stuff right now because it's like hard, very hard to pull off.
Yeah, I kind of screwed up when Luca was on here because I started talk. I was going to talk about the probability, and then he cut me off and said, "Well, there are proteins that are only 2 amino acids in length, right?" And then I said, "Well, they require something else, right?" And it took me a couple questions to get to the point where he would admit that, yeah, they require something greater in complexity. Well, okay, how complex are those? Because that's the thing I'm talking about.
What's the most basic integrated systems in a living organism that it can point to? Because it seems like even, yeah, like you're saying, that even a small thing is dependent on other systems or whatever in anything that's even cellular or whatever, right? Or self-replicating.
Well,
it can reduce it so far, right? I mean, even like
when he was talking about 2 amino acid long proteins, I didn't even say anything. I didn't want to get into that. Like I want to see the documentation of that one because that's just wrong. I mean, even like that's just okay. I think the shortest functional ones that I'm aware of are like 50 something, like 40 to 50 amino acids in length. Like if you're gonna sit there and be like 2 amino acid long protein, like no, no, there might be some like little signal, some like little signal widgets and stuff that maybe okay, fine, maybe. But no, I want to see the formal documentation where there's recognized functional proteins that are 2 amino acids in length. I'm pretty sure that's not true. And it's the same thing with like on the RNA side, like microRNAs are, I think, are 20, either 20, they're 21 to 23 long, and then pi RNAs are 27 to 31, I believe, in length. And it's like, but they're like all in that range, and like they're measured in those ranges. Like, oh, it's this. If it's shorter than that, it does nothing, or it's like broken. If it's longer, then it's not a microRNA. If it's outside of the range of like 27 to 31, 32, whatever it is, then it's not a pi RNA. I mean, like these things are specifically delineated, and then they're like glossed over in like the conversation in these debates. But if you like go read the papers, they're like specifically designated which is which, and based on the ranges. It's like same thing with like holy crap, late night brain freeze here. Oh man, cannot believe I'm forgetting this term. Well, anyway, it's in epigenetics. There's a range of like I think it's 149. Every 149th piece is like where the next code break starts. It's nuts, man. Like the specificity that's going on there, and we hear ad nauseum from all these folks. Like it's just like, oh, it's all random. There's nothing special. It's like a bunch of trash junk. It's like no, it's not. We're finding out the hyperspecificity over and over and over again. Stop it. Oh, Bob, are you taking off?
Yeah, I it's late. I gotta go to bed. It's almost midnight for me.
Did you get my message, Bob?
Did you text me?
Yeah, I sent you a video that I want to see if you want to review with me.
Oh yeah, I'll check it out.
Well, appreciate you joining us, Bob.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's always fun to have a conversation with you guys and see what you guys are talking about. 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4, the gospel by which you were saved, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures. He was buried and he was raised on the 3rd day according to the scriptures. Good night.
Good night.
I actually think I was watching Standing Truth's video on. You guys hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through.
All right. I think he was talking about the genetic code or something like that. Maybe it was a month ago that this video came out, and they were talking about the that the charge they always make that creation science doesn't have any predictions, except they conveniently forget that the creation scientists were the ones that were talking about the junk DNA is actually not junk, and they were predicting that it actually probably has a function, and then they were the one that found the functions and research for the functions of the junk DNA that people call the junk. And then nobody wanted to talk about it because kind of goes against the evolutionary paradigm, which makes the evolutionary paradigm slow down science, which is kind of funny because that's what the same claim that they have against creation science, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I like Luke. Luke was a nice guy. I like him, but like he makes the same generalizations of like, oh, well, we just accounted for this, and we're not that far away from X. And it's like, well, actually, we are. You're not accounting for all this stuff. And then in the context of things like, oh, well, I don't need to account in the junk DNA paradigm, right? And like, oh, we don't have to account for all of this stuff. Like, we don't even need to bother paying attention to it. It's like, so that's not even remotely where things are and what the progress is towards. And then, of course, Speed of Pudding and the gang will be like, oh, I mean, we're not even remotely starting to recognize there's any of this kind of stuff to do. It's like, what? Well, there's papers being published on this exact topic, like all the time. That there's a growing number of scientists who are like publicly stating like, hey, stop calling it this. You're blocking my funding. And hey, I'm finding all sorts of, very important functions inside of this stuff. And it's directly applicable to disease research and figuring out how to keep us from dying when the breaks happen in all these portions that you guys claim don't have any function. And
yeah, it's just Bible talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, so let's see. Utopia Buster says the smallest protein is 20 amino acids long. Belongs to a Gila monster. Interesting. 20. Okay. Well, 20 is not 2.
Well, 0 is still 0, so maybe it's 2. Depends how you read it.
Yeah. Let's see. Dressel says, look up Hardy's 2021 critique of junk DNA. I'll have to search that. Let's see. The junk DNA is full of information. Yep.
John, I'm still wondering why God made a flightless bird like the emu. Give me an answer, man.
Don't know. But yeah, Dessel, in line with that, all the information, like, I don't know if you've seen the stuff on all of the recognition of the functions of the short tandem repeats, both from a regulatory perspective as well as from a structural integrity perspective, like dual function. And there's a plethora of diseases that have been identified in relation to the elongation in some instances or shortening of the completely pointless junk DNA that is the short tandem repeat. And it's like now they're finding out, oh, wait, it has very specific functions. And if they get jacked up, then you have XYZ disease. And it's like, but
yeah, I thought that was interesting. They said that it actually uses the junk DNA as a structure. I never heard that part. That's pretty interesting. And then all of a sudden, if it uses a structure, that means it's like a fundamental part of that DNA.
What do they always? Sorry, John.
Oh, I was going to say on the structural component of like what they're now discovering in relation to the inter and intra chromosomal gene regulation. They're finding out, like, in many instances, some of these different like supposed junk portions are acting as literal like pivot points and springs, if you will, to enable the physical alignment of the chromosomes in order for the gene regulation and expression
function, right?
to take place. Yeah. And it's like, so you're telling me that this 3-dimensional component that enables spatiotemporal alignment of a linear portion of a code to align up with the other portion that's on a different freaking chromosome, you're telling me that that is junk? Like, I don't buy that. Sorry.
Well, John, what about the like? I've never heard anybody try to even explain an evolutionary path for the codes that are error correcting. Or I guess it seems to me like that would be really problematic, especially when they say when like there's creationists talking to an evolutionary person. They're saying they'll say the creationists will ask something like, well, if something about information build up or whatever, and they'll be like, well, in mutations, and then they'll say, well, like, what do you mean by information? And it's like, well, if those are like synonymous in their model, like the thing you were just mentioning about disease and stuff coming from this stuff, it just seems really like kind of hypocritical to like act like there's not some differentiation between just a mutation and something going wrong, and a buildup of information. It's like really no different than just random mutations, So it's like what they try to suggest is, I don't get that.
Well, in the whole aspect of like the information and such, it's like, I get extraordinarily frustrated with the standard Evo atheist talking point of like, what do you mean by information? And it's like, reduction of uncertainty is like a surface is a surface level is like a surface level definition, but there's like so many different underlying layers of it. And then there's formal definitions of functional information, prescriptive like these are like formally defined in information and communication theory. And there's like mathematical formulas, and it's been applied, and there's even formulas that have been constructed in order to determine functional information in relation to the genome. Not by creationists, not by ID advocates, but by hardcore atheists who are researchers who are actively looking for naturalistic explanations, but they recognize the existence of and the requirement to account for the information. And then yet on YouTube, we still have atheists running around claiming that there isn't any information to account for. And it's like,
please, like, what's his name? Speed of Pudding or whatever is telling that guy who works in the field, like, hey, you need to stop using precise adjectives, in your work, because it sounds a lot like information, and you shouldn't say that. It's like, well, I got to define it as it is, right?
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? That paper you presented?
Dr. Gold. Yeah. Yeah, on the Talon protein and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah. So you can either accept it as existence, or when you argue that somebody like myself is the one running around suffering from Dunning-Kruger, or not thinking, or just doesn't understand, or misinterpreting, it's like, is it me or you?
Yeah.
Because it seems to me like we're dealing with people, as I jokingly say, who have hardcore atheist fantasyland projection complex. And I mean, I say that
with a second midlife crisis right then.
I mean, I don't get it, man. Like, you can, I've said this to many people I've debated. That's like, look, if you want to come up with an explanation for how this exists, fine. You don't have to accept my argument that because of this, that means that a intelligent agent is necessary. You can say, no, I don't think an intelligent agent is necessary. But you can't say what I am claiming needs an intelligent agent in order to exist doesn't exist. Like, you don't just get to like dismiss it because you don't agree with my conclusion. Like, I don't think that the world is round. Why not? Because you can't prove to me that it is. Like, okay, that doesn't change the fact that the Earth is round. Like, I mean, sometimes I feel like when you go down the rabbit hole far enough with Evo atheists, they turn into like the epitome of the flat earther, but on like the reciprocal. But that's just me. Oh, thanks. I'll look out for that email. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying they're more fundamentalist than the fundamentalist, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. How do you feel about that, Danny?
I did listen to your point, but then someone else talked. Was it that Evo atheists are like young Earth? Sorry, I'm not young Earth. Flat Earth. What was the overall point? I was listening, but
well, actually, the real question I was asking you about in the context of a significant portion of the YouTube Evo atheists, as I call them, act like, because someone like myself concludes that because of information coding, nanotech, etc., that is indicative of a intelligent agent being necessary, instead of saying, well, I just disagree with you that an intelligent agent is necessary, they straight up dismiss the fact that
that's information,
the information, the coding, the nanotech even exists. And like what? Like that to me is just very bizarre. Claiming it, and therefore it's like I feel like they are becoming the equivalent of a flat earther in like the flat earther,
because everyone
the flat earther claims that we, what you're seeing from the International Space Station showing the curve of the Earth, that's not real. I feel like it's the exact same equivalent when they say like the genetic code is not actually a code.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that however, sometimes when people ask, some people define information. Like I think there's certain kinds of information that necessarily, like logically, imply an agent. So I think, for instance, if language, like in when humans communicate using language, I think if there's language, I think that necessarily implies, logically speaking, an agent. So that's kind of, I think, where some of them are coming from.
Well, I mean, I agree, but that's my point. Is the functional information in DNA, per the researchers, as you personally know full well, because you've been around when I've been reading the papers on this topic, it's formally recognized to have language type properties, have syntax, semantics, and pragmatics that are applied to it, that are not determined by physics and chemistry. So it's like, at that point, again, it's not that you have to, by conceding that information exists, that you have to concede that the intelligent agent is necessary, but you can't deny that it exists just because you disagree with the potential implications from an ontology perspective, right?
Yeah, but I think if you're right that, let's say DNA is a language in the same sense that English is a language, I think that logically implies an agent, like necessarily.
Well, I agree that's the end conclusion, but my point is that that would be the rational conclusion. But in order to avoid having to address that being the rational conclusion, many atheists claim that that information, that type of information, even exists in biological systems.
Yeah, so they talk about different senses of information, right? They all said they might agree that it's information, but in an equivocal sense. It's not univocal. So they'll say,
right? It's just a metaphor.
Well, no. They'll. So the metaphor thing, that's out the window for a second. I'm with you there, but the idea is that there's, if you understand Shannon information, that sense of information is different than the sense of information when we're talking about our meaning intentions in our languages. I think those are two.
No, I completely agree with you. And
Okay.
I've delineated that like ad nauseum a bazillion times to folks. That Shannon information is just recognizing like the raw bits like that are available versus the the semantics value of it. And Shannon himself recognized that the first stage, I mean, it's why it's the theory of communication, right? He recognized that was just the first step. And then from a communication perspective, you have a whole other layer of things that are not necessarily measured mathematically, like Shannon information is. And that's the whole point I'm making in relation to the information in biological systems is you don't just have raw bit. You can calculate the number of bits in the, that the sequence, right? But you don't know what the sequence means.
Yeah,
You don't have this the semantic values of the syntax, right? Which is what is clearly delineated and defined now. And we know that there is syntax, semantics, and pragmatics that are assigned to it, right? Versus just the raw Shannon information. And this has like been known and documented and well researched for 50 years at this point. And massive amounts of research went into finally defining, okay, is there just syntax? Or is there syntax and semantics? Oh, yes, there is syntax and semantics. Oh, is there pragmatics? Yes, there is pragmatics. We now know this, right? So we have a digital code that has syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. It has overall grammar rules, like it's defined grammar rules. And we now have the ability to translate it and to then also write new novel functions by following the syntax, semantics, pragmatic values that we have been able to translate and to quantify, right? So that would be like saying I learned English and then I was able to write a new unique sentence in English after I learned the English. Like, what are we doing with genetic engineering right now? Like, that's exactly what we're doing. We're programming new functions based on that, our understanding of the code base. But then on the flip side, we have atheists who are running around claiming that none of that exists because they don't want to recognize the implications of it. So either it doesn't exist and all the things that we're creating out of it are not real and I'm just freaking making all this up and it's just fantasy, and all the researchers that are doing this and the billions of dollars that are being invested in it doesn't actually happen. That's not really happening. Or on the flip side, you need to address the fact that there is implications in terms of our existence that must be addressed. Or you have to just come to the conclusion, which a lot of the origin of life researchers are, which is, oh, well, we just haven't figured out how it could possibly happen. This way, like we know it did, we just haven't figured it out yet. I mean, but they're not denying the fact that it exists. You follow me?
Yeah. So do you think that, okay, so like I know, I'm trying to understand you a little bit more. You're saying that if there's a semantic token, like a word, or like if I saw the word cat and written kind of spelled out in the clouds, we're not necessarily committed to thinking that an agent spelled out the word in the clouds, right? So that's fine. You're saying that, well, there's going to be a level of I guess, as you would say, semantic content or semantic I guess stuff, that level of complexity that would establish the necessity of an agent, right? Is that kind of like where you're coming from?
Well, yes, but I mean, from a specific perspective, you're talking about like the code mapping that has taken place. Like whether or not you want to come up with some naturalistic explanation for it, there's no way around the reality. There's code mapping between two different alphabets, two different worlds of the codon sequences and amino acids. Like you got the protein domain and the nucleotide domain, right? The gene sequence domain. Like there's nowhere around this. The codons have been mapped optimally to amino acids. Like we have translation mechanisms which recognize both code bases in order for the execution of protein synthesis. Like this is documented, established, and well accepted in academia as reality. So while they're trying to account for some naturalistic way for code mapping to take place, the reality is you have a digital code base that has somehow mapped itself with that, either with an intelligent agent or without an intelligent agent. So at this point, it's like, which one is the more rational conclusion? That there was an intelligent agent or there wasn't. Otherwise, you have to say it's plausible that the binary representations of the ASCII code base to numbers and values and letter values in the English alphabet, that somehow that code mapping could take place without an intelligent agent. because it's the direct equivalent. It's not an analogy. It's not metaphor. It's direct equivalency.
Yeah, so it seems like then it's not the semantic content that matters, because you can have semantic expressions and then be very justified in thinking that there's a naturalistic explanation, like in the cloud example. So it's something else that you're pointing.
No. The semantic value must be accounted for. In here's where you're completely off base on the point you're making, Danny. If you look up at the cloud and see something that looks like the word sheep, does both the alphabet and of the English language that's being used and the word and the organization of those letters to be equal to the word sheep and the value assignment of what it represents, the organism that word now represents, those organization of symbols recognizes, all of that has to be accounted for before you could look up at a cloud and be like, oh, that looks like the word sheep.
Like, yeah, you're gonna have to have background information about such an expression to like even think that.
Right, but the semantic values both from the sounds that are associated with the shapes. Like there's a code mapping that's taken place between the S, the sound that's been associated with it is S, right?
Yeah.
Then sh for SH, right? Those values had to be assigned to those sound values were assigned to those symbols. And then the E's, right? She, right? They had to be assigned to the E's. And then sheep, right? Has to be, and then even if you had all those words, let's say you create all those letters and like create the sounds to them, and then after the fact, you then had to say, okay, these letters and these sounds, when put together, sound like sheep, and then I'm going to say, that woolly little animal over there, I'm going to call that a sheep. You've now code mapped the block code of all those letters to be now equal to that animal. All of those things, there's syntax, semantics, and pragmatics that all went into the value assignments for SHEEP to now be equal to sheep and to be assigned to be equal to that organism. And that's way more than like, I looked up at a cloud, like cool. You can look up at the cloud now, but all the other stuff that I just talked about had to have occurred before looking up at the cloud, and you having a communication system in your brain, which enables you to interpret where you're seeing those equivalent shapes being derived from the cloud shape could now be equal to the word sheep. You follow me?
Yeah. Where did you disagree with me exactly? So do we agree that
you were dismissing the semantic value in relation to the genetic code?
No, I'm saying that
is seeing it in a cloud.
Wait, so let me go. I guess I go like statement by statement that when we both look up in the sky and we see a word like sheep or cat or whatever, we're going to recognize it as a word, and I don't think we're wrong for that. All right, it's going to be a semantic expression. It totally makes sense to say, look, there's the word sheep. Okay, so then do we agree on that?
Well, of course we agree on that, but the point I'm making is that you have to account for the preceding requirements before what you just said has any relevance.
Okay, but nonetheless, we agree that it's a semantic expression that's up in the sky. Okay, but now there's a question about what explains why there is that particular physical configuration that, you get where a word emerges, and we're totally fine with thinking that it might be completely naturalistically given. So that means that it's not in virtue in that specific case that it's semantic expression that we're committed to thinking that there's an intentional explanation.
What is your theory of language?
Theory of language? I mean, I take something like a meaning is use.
No. I mean, even way before that. Like, how did language start?
Oh, I already told you. I take language to be a function of meaning as used.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell us how it starts. How did?
Well, it does actually. It tells language begins when you start to use dispositions to communicate. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so what was the start of that? Because there are theories out there, and I want you to list. There's 5 of them. There are 5 theories of language, and I want to know which one you hold to.
Well, I already told you. I take the meaning as use.
Yeah, that's not a theory of language.
Well, then I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so there's the ding dong theory, the la la theory, the po po theory, and the yo hi ho theory. Which one do you hold to?
I don't hold to any of those.
Why not?
I guess I'm ignorant of those views.
Okay, so for example, the ding dong theory was one that was favored by Plato and Pythagoras, and it maintains that speech arose in response to the essential qualities of objects in the environment. So the original sounds people made were supposedly in harmony with the world around them. That would be an example of one of the speech theories. However,
okay, I take Davidson's view that meaning is use with respect to semantic expressions.
Yeah, so then how did semantic expressions start?
I just told you. A semantic expression is an expression, at least originally, given that some agent used that particular disposition to communicate. That's all I take. Language to be.
And how did that start?
But I already told you. I mean, I've said this 3 times.
Yeah, you're just saying that the people started using semantics, but how?
How did they use it? The idea of use is that it's intentional, it's desired, right? So the moment that language became a thing, so to speak, is when someone desired or intended to use a disposition to communicate.
Do animals not communicate?
Well, that's contentious. I'm on the fence about that one.
Well, they use semantic range as well.
I'm not so sure about that. I'm skeptical.
How do you know that?
I'd already told you I'm skeptical.
I've seen 2 cats, and I've seen a cat get extremely angry at another cat, and that cat walks away.
Well, that's just begging the question, right?
No, it's not.
Why wouldn't you think
we can actually observe it's testable, demonstrable, and repeatable.
Yeah, but that's just begging the question to my view.
That's not begging the question. I don't think you understand what begging the question is.
Well, I'm saying that I don't know if they even communicate, and then you're saying that because I question whether they even have intentionality, and for my as you say theory of language requires intentionality.
Yeah, they have intention.
Well, I'm not so sure.
Don't eat my food.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that they have intentionality.
How do you know that?
When I'm saying that I'm not sure, it means I don't know.
Yeah, I want to know how you're not sure about that. Do you not see that it's a true dichotomy? It's either the fact that they are communicating with semantics or they're not.
I guess you don't know what it means to be skeptical.
No, you're just claiming ignorance completely.
Yes, that's exactly what ignorance in the sense that I don't know. Maybe you know, and you can give me an argument.
Yeah, it's testable, repeatable, and demonstrable.
Yeah, but that's exactly what a skeptic is going to ask you how. That's why I accused you of begging the question.
That's not what the definition of begging the question is.
Well, when I asked
what syllogism did I just give you that has the where the premise and the conclusion contain the same content?
I'll give it to you. You made the claim that that animals have intentionality, and so the skeptic asked how. So then whatever that how is going to be your argument or your justification. But then you just said that, it's repeatable, demonstrable, it's substantiated via evidence, right?
So how do you know that people have semantic range or have semantic intent?
I'm oscillating between 2 views. Either that it's perception, which means that you don't infer to it.
Okay, so that's begging the question.
To what?
You're begging the question. You're doing the exact same thing that I was doing.
What was I claiming?
Basically,
what was my claim?
Because you can perceive it.
What was? Oh yeah, but you didn't ask for an argument for why I think whether it's perceptive or not, right?
Yeah, I didn't give you an argument either, and you just told me that I was.
No, you did.
What was my argument?
I asked you why should I believe that animals have intentionality, and then you just said it's substantiated, which begs the question.
No, it's observable, testable, and repeatable.
Yeah, that just means it's evidentially substantiated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that just begs the question.
How does it beg the question? What is the syllogism? So lay it out to me in a syllogism, in a premise conclusion form.
Yeah, you said your conclusion is remember your conclusion. Your conclusion is that animals have intentionality, right? Then I asked you for the argument.
My conclusion is animals have a semantic range within their speech.
No, our disagreement or what I was asking you is, why should I believe that animals have intentionality, right?
What's your definition of intentionality?
Intentionality, something like having a point of view.
Having a point to what?
A view.
Thoughts, belief. Oh, so like a desire?
Desires, intentional states, beliefs. Yeah.
Okay, does an animal not have a desire to live?
I don't think so. I'm skeptical.
Really?
I think there might be
really. That's you really think that?
Well, I'm told you I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I think you're digging yourself into such a skeptical hole that you're never going to be able to find your way out.
Well, then just give me an argument for why I should think that cats have beliefs and desires.
Okay, if a predator comes up to a prey, what does the prey do?
Presumably kills the animal and eats it.
Yeah, so but what does the prey do?
Oh, it dies. It
tries to what?
Well, tries is an intentional concept, so I don't.
Does it? Well, then why would it do that? Why wouldn't it just say, "Oh, there's my predator"? According to the laws of the circle of life, I must die now.
What I'm contesting is that it even has that kind of intentionality.
Really? Yeah, I find that extraordinarily hard to believe.
Well, I think there are two reasons.
I don't think it's rational to think that way because the animal obviously runs away from that.
Well, just because
it has an instinctive fear because it knows that it's going to die if it stays there.
Yeah, that just begs the question again.
Now, another thing too is that what's even more interesting is that if a mother or father of one of those animal groups has children with it, it will actually sacrifice itself. It will actually stay there and then die so its offspring can escape. And so I'd like to see how you get around that when it comes to
I think that all can be true. I think that can all be true without intentionality.
No, it really can't. What would be the driving source for that?
Probably a brain state or something like that.
Yeah, so a mental state?
No, I don't take brain states.
That would be a mental state.
I don't take brain states to be mental states.
This is the first time I've ever heard anybody say this. I think this is
you've never talked to a dualist before?
Oh, that answer isn't now. Okay. Yeah, now I understand why you think that way. Okay.
Okay, real quick, guys. Wild Heart's just joined us. What's up, Wild Heart? How are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me on. The only thing I had since I came in was saying that animals don't have the intention to keep living. I think that's evolution. I think they do. I think it's due to evolution. They have a wanting to keep living. That's the only thing I have.
Okay. Okay, you guys keep going. I will be back in 2 seconds. I gotta go take a piss. I'll be back.
And Plastic Jesus rocks.
Hey, Wild Heart, how are you?
Yeah, good. Cheers.
Yeah, but I don't think it's crazy to think that animals have intentionality. I just think that there are probably not good reasons to think that.
I don't understand. If you think they probably do, but you don't think there were good reasons to believe it, I don't understand that.
Did I say they probably do? I'm saying that if someone thinks that the mosquito has like intentionality, I don't really think that there's anything I can say that would have them be committed to otherwise, right? But the idea is that when I think about things like self-knowledge, I think that what it means to have a point of view is to have beliefs about your point of view, to have about and so the idea is that I don't know what it means to say that an animal has a point of view but doesn't know itself.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. But if you think that your cat knows who he is or she is, right, then identifies with their intentionality, then there's nothing for me to say. I don't think it's irrational to say that. But I find that very unintuitive.
Yeah, like they're not intelligent to have like self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to go from there. Maybe someone can convince me otherwise. I don't know.
But I mean, they've done like tests of like for example, of chickens, and where chickens actually know where their home is, they know where they're supposed to roost. And so if you move them outside of their location, they will return back to that
Yeah,
location.
but this all look, you're just using intentional language. I'm just going to contest the language there, right? There's a question about whether chickens know to go back or whether they're disposed to going back. You see, I think animals are primarily disposed to doing things. They don't intend to do things.
And so what do you mean by disposed?
Like if I throw a rock down a hill, the rock is disposed to falling down the hill given laws of nature.
Well, no, that's not the rock. That's gravity that's doing that.
You don't think the rock has that disposition to fall down rather than float up?
Well, that's not the rock itself. You're conflating two separate sources.
You know,
the gravity is what's pulling the rock down. The rock has no way of having any sort of intentionality. It has no way of having any sort of predisposition whatsoever.
You're not.
No,
really
I just don't think I don't think you're being clear.
I'll be more clear for you then. I think that rocks have a disposition, which is just to say a causal tendency to fall when thrown. Okay, that's all I mean by when the rock falls, it's disposed to fall. That it has the disposition that in these conditions, if it were thrown, let's say, or tossed, it falls. So other things don't have that disposition. For instance,
sorry, if I can try and help, I think when you said disposed, some people, me included, some people think of intentionality. When you said disposed, it means they're thinking about it, they're choosing to do it. Just if you could choose another word that means the same thing, that might help.
Well, it might help, but I mean, I think that this is the way that some people talk in philosophy of the mind talk. But the idea is that there's such things as mere causal tendencies, like when rocks fall to the ground, when trees lean to the side, given the sun shining right on one side rather than another. These things are not intentional, and so I think there are a lot of, even when we squint. When we step outside on a bright day, we're disposed to squinting. It's not like we choose to do it all the time. Okay.
So I got a quick question. So would you say that animals, they just act on instinct? Would that be your view?
Something like that. Instinct might imply intentionality. Depends how you're using the term. But what I'm trying to say is that the way that plants are disposed to leaning on one side of the poles, or lean west rather than east. I think whatever is it kind of underlying that kind of causal nature is the same sort of causal nature that we might see in animals when it's. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I mean by instinct is like, if somebody trains martial arts, right, and somebody throws a jab, your brain reacts without you even thinking about it, to block or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's how animals would act? So let's say
very much. Yes, exactly like that. Because I don't think that's intentional. I think that if I throw a punch to your face and your hand just kind of comes up and grabs it unintentionally, right, given your reflex, that's a good example of a disposition.
So would you say like let's say a bear, if it was hungry or if it was in an agitative state, it just by instinct will lash out?
Yeah, that's how I see it. But I could be. I don't think my view. I think either view is not irrational. I think if you think that the bear is acting on reasons, that it's intending, that it's aware of what it's doing, that it can reflect and in a way where it can say, I made a mistake, that it even considers itself as a subject, right? I think this is all implied by intentionality. Then I really don't know what to say to you, but I'm just skeptical of all that.
Okay, so
what about?
I got one more.
Do you think it's all animals or just some animals?
Probably most animals, but there are some animals where it's hard for me to believe otherwise, that they do. Like if I find myself sometimes, there is a bit of cognitive dissonance when I step on a dog's tail and it yelps in pain. But I think considering.
It's hard to believe that an ant has enough mental capacity to be self-aware and know what it's doing. I think it must just be working on instincts.
Yeah, there's some views about mind where if you have a belief, you must have a belief of that belief. So if I believe that it's raining outside, what it means to say that I believe that it's raining outside is that I recognize that belief, that I believe that it's raining outside. And so I'm just very skeptical that
yeah, but we can see this as well. I know you're just going to say it's begging the question, but that's how we're actually going to be able to observe anything, and how we come to conclusions is by testing it and seeing if
no,
it's
I don't.
demonstrable
That's
or not,
where
or
we
whatever.
disagree. I don't think we test for intentionality.
Sure we can.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
Yeah, so we can see this with animals that were trained for fighting, or even animals that had been abused by previous owners. There are animals that specifically don't like males, but they'll be fine with female human counterparts. And why would they have that? Why did they have the intentionality to be afraid of that and say that male human is bad, but the female human is not bad?
Yeah,
how would you explain that in sort of in your worldview?
Just merely in terms of dispositional facts, rather than instead of intentional facts. So they had such and such brain state that caused such and such physiological state, which caused such and such.
Okay,
results.
So you're using causation. What's your theory of causation?
Well, I mean, I take a counterfactual view of causation, but I broadly speaking, when it comes to mental causation, I think when mental facts explain physical facts, or vice versa, or when mental facts explain or cause other mental facts, I think that's all singular causation. Whereas dispositions, natural states that interact causally, I think that's going to be law-like causation.
So I actually, I don't know. I can't hold to concrete, but I do lean toward that some animals have at least some awareness. I don't know how full it is, but
yeah.
The only reason is because, like, I saw a video online one time. It was just a bear. It was eating something. I think it was at a zoo, and it was just eating something. And there was like some kind of bird in the little water that they had enclosure, and it was like drowning in it. Couldn't get out, and the bear was eating its food, and it turned around, walked over there, grabbed it by its teeth, pulled it out, and then went back to eating, which kind of makes you wonder why did the bear leave his food, and if it's instinct, like it's hard to put a model together of how instincts could.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why my original statement was that I'm skeptical. If someone presented good arguments, then I might change my mind. I don't really have a strong view, but the original discussion was whether animals have language, and I think that that's not clear that they do. It's not clear at all that they do. I think that at least they must have intentionality. So I don't think that, for instance, bees communicate in a semantic sense. They might signal to each other in the same way that computer systems might signal to other computer.
I think it's on a sliding scale. Like a bird will have more self-awareness than an ant. Like it's like a sliding scale. The better mental ability you have, I think it's different.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. So if we take the one side of the scale, where ants and bees, produce scent.
So Danny, the bee dance is clearly semantic. It is clear that a certain type of dance indicates the presence of food at a corresponding location.
They do circles.
I'm reading from a paper right now.
Have you read Historia and Emilia by Aristotle?
No.
Okay, well, that in his document Historia and Emilia, he talks specifically about the different types of communications, where he actually calls it the circle dance, the waggle dance, and he gives accurate different type, and how that those bees give accurate descriptions on where their location, how far things are, and where the hive and the food.
Yeah, but I take Chomsky's distinction between communication and signaling. Noam Chomsky's distinction.
Yeah, but are they still giving information?
Sure.
Okay, information, that means it has to have some sort of semantic range to it.
Well,
music, for example,
depends on how you look. I think that computer systems signal to each other. I don't think they're communicating. And they
definitely are communicating.
Well, then you and I mean something different by communicate.
Communication is just to relate different types of information through a syntactical
Well, then by that definition, I'm fine to agree with you, but that's not how I use the term.
Yeah, but that is what the term is. So just because you make
I
up a
don't.
new
I'm not a
term doesn't
realist
make
about
it.
definitions, right? I think definitions are a matter of how we use
Okay,
them.
well, so that means in any argument, what you can do is just change the definition just to make it right.
No,
for
I
you.
just agree. Look, Sheep, I just agreed with you that by that definition, animals communicate, computers communicate. I have no problem with that. Cells communicate. I'm saying that by the notion of communication that I usually operate is that communication is intentional. Okay, so
Yes,
that
and
I don't think.
there's intention. There's intention
Do
behind
you think?
why the
Do you
bees.
think computers intend when they communicate?
No, I'm talking about the bees. When the
Well, no,
bees
look, so
are
then that means there's an open question then. If something is communicating, there's an open question of whether it's intentional.
Yeah, so
Okay,
even within the computer, the
hang on.
computers can be designed for intent in order to do something. But we're talking about now
That's
something that's
confused.
specifically designed on that has a goal in mind of it, some sort of properties that are instilled in it, so that it has a goal in mind. Bees have a goal in mind as well, where they're trying to build up a hive and bring food and resources to the hive as a
But
whole.
we don't disagree. I'm gonna turn that as signaling. I understand what you're saying. I agree with you.
Yeah, and then there's communication that's happening there because there's information that has been transferred from one source to another source.
Yeah, but I understand how you're using your terms, and I agree with you.
Can I just add that haven't gorillas been taught to use sign language? Isn't that a direct form of communication? Gorillas can sign language. I'm not sure about that, but
it's not
I think
consistent though.
All right. Okay.
I heard something about chimpanzees.
Danny, you can't dance around the between like human communication versus computer communication. Like it's formally recognized in there's like multiple layers in terms of the definition of the word, right? And with a computer system, the computer isn't conscious of the information transfer and all this, but it can, because it's the translation mechanisms are pre-built with the capacity to understand and to interpret not consciously, but able to interpret the semantic values that have been assigned to whatever symbols are being recognized. And like every communication system has this. In the context of you and I having this conversation right now, your brain is operating as the decoding and encoding mechanism, but you understand English and all the semantic values. If your communication component in this context, your brain and your ears, even all those different mechanisms that are working together in order for you to reconstruct the audio waves that are hitting your ears and then turning that into semantic values that you're being able to interpret, like those mechanisms exist in every communication system, period.
Yeah, I think based
Full
on
stop.
how you,
Full stop. It doesn't matter whether it's a conscious agent or a computer system that's interpreting it. They must have all those components.
Yeah, I think that based on how you're using the term communication, there's an open question as to whether it's intentional or not. But there is a sense of communication found in the literature that is defined intentionally. Okay. So if you're using the former sense, then I agree with you.
Right. Dude, the whole point I just said, I prefaced when I first started talking here is like there's, in terms of communication, yes, there can be the conscious intent and all that kind of stuff, yada, 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 whatever. That doesn't circumvent the underlying necessities for all communication systems. Whether or not there is conscious intent has nothing to do with what is necessary for the communication to actually take place. Because in the context of the computer system that is working in conjunction with us as conscious agents, there had to be the preceding intention instantiated into the mechanisms that are being used as a communication system in order for the communication to take place.
There had to be?
In all known instances, other than the supposed circumvention of this in relation to the origin of life, because all of the signaling the hypotheses that come up with, like the expansion, signal theory, all that kind of stuff for evolutionary perspective, there's already existing intelligent agents in order for the expansion of those models. And moreover, the underlying, this goes back to the communication system that is necessary, the digital communication system that is necessary in order for life to exist, based on the known documented evidence. you have to have all these things that supposedly don't require an intelligent agent to have instantiated the intent of the semantic values, the pragmatics, and the syntax into mechanism, the medium, which contains this information and then has the other components of a communication system that are necessary in order for its interpretation. Like, are you familiar with like the Shannon-Weaver model of communication?
No.
Okay, why don't you Google it real quick and like pull up a diagram?
Okay.
And so you can like I've got them, but I don't know where the hell I put them. Just like pull it up, it'll come right up. Shannon-Weaver model.
I have
and
it.
You'll see a diagram. Okay, and you should see like.
I've seen this. Yeah, I've seen this.
Okay, so that's a Shannon-Weaver model, right? That is directly applicable. There's actually diagrams for this published by Oxford of this direct application to a genetic communication system. Like, this is what happens in protein synthesis, is a direct, like, hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, direct comparison to the Shannon-Weaver model of communication, right? That's happening from transcription through translation, elongation, all that stuff, right? Like, that is communication. It's happening exactly in the same format as all the same components that are necessary in all. And I guarantee you, if you go to any professor of communication, telecommunication, all that kind of stuff, and you tried to argue with them and claim that all of those components are not necessary, in every communication system, they would just look at you like, you are insane. Get the hell out of my classroom. However, in the context of the existence of our very existence, we have people who claim that you somehow are able to circumvent the necessities of all communication systems in order for life to exist. Like, oh, we did somehow, they all just like came into existence at different times. But wait, hang on. But if we don't have them all at the same time, you can't have communication, right? In any other context? No, like, you can't. Oh, but we did in this context somehow. So somehow life was happening when you didn't have to have all the components that are necessary for communication to take place. Like, we're going to say that in this hypothetical outlier, that wasn't what was required. But in any other context, you would be laughed out of the room and considered a complete moron.
Yeah, I don't see what's our disagreement other than the inference because you're making an inference that an intelligence is required.
Because you've been trying to dance around and say that the communication lacking intent.
Yeah, I told Sheep that I agreed with him based on how you use the terms, and I agree with you based on how you're using the terms.
Then why were you trying to use the two? You were trying to use the first definition of communication, not the second.
Yeah, I was very explicit that I take Chomsky's distinction between communication and signaling.
Right. So are you aware of the fact that Chomsky actually recognized the genetic code as a formal language?
Sure. Well, no, he's not going to recognize it as a semantic. He might.
Actually, he did, and I've actually quoted from a paper that references this on multiple occasions. So Chomsky actually was one of the individuals who was involved in the project, which recognized the syntax, semantics, and pragmatics.
No, he's going to recognize the syntactical, right? He's going to but he's going to differentiate it between the sense of semantics that he usually, that he's known for with his work and philosophy of mind.
Are you really going to dig up this paper?
Well, I can do my own research if you want. I can do it now. Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and do it now.
But like cells don't need mind to transfer to create the next generation, right? Because that's what evolution is theorizing, that information somehow keeps getting more and more complex. So somehow the syntax is growing just by.
And let me be very explicit. What I'm saying, what I think Chomsky is denying is that DNA is a language. He's going to deny that. Okay, so maybe I stand ignorant about how he uses the term semantic, but if he's using the word semantic to mean of language, Chomsky's going to reject that DNA is language.
Okay.
Yeah.
LPP, did you are you pulling it up right now? Because I have the paper pulled up. I'm gonna start looking through it.
I don't
No,
know
I'm
DNA.
I'm too tired for that. I'm about to wrap this up here in about 5 minutes anyway. We can, you guys, if you guys can keep talking, I'm exhausted. I've been going all day.
See, language is one mind trying to communicate to another mind. I don't know if DNA can be a language. DNA is a set of chemical processes. I don't know how it can be a language.
Oh my god, dude. Okay, listen. I am
Sorry?
so tired of freaking. Are you an atheist or a theist?
Yes, I'm an atheist. Yes.
Okay, I am so tired of freaking atheists
Sorry.
and the stupid. It's just chemical reactions bullshit. Like, dude, it's the medium. Okay,
Well, it's not a language. A language.
Dude, silence. Deoxyribonucleic acid is the freaking medium that contains the code, among many other things. Okay, it's the medium. All right, I can put a computer file on a CD on a thumb drive. We can transmit it via Wi-Fi, via radio signal. You can print it out on the code onto a piece of paper, or if it's the code that represents an image, you can print that on paper, or you can look at it in pixels on your computer screen. Okay, the medium which contains the information is not the information itself. Okay, so if I can write a new genetic sequence in computer code, and then I can translate that from computer code, from binary, into a genetic code sequence of codons. Okay, then it can be synthesized by a machine and turned from digital code into a physical chemical medium, which now holds that code, and then can be translated from an mRNA sequence by the ribosome into a three-dimensional object, which is a protein, whether it be a already existing one in a gene sequence or a custom brand new novel one that's been created.
Yeah.
Like originally, if I was supposed to be creating a brand new one, it didn't exist. The code that didn't, like, oh, for crying out loud, dude. Like, it's just so freaking obnoxious to hear. And I'm ranting at you right now because this just drives me up the freaking wall, man. Like, I'm so tired of hearing the chemical reaction deal. There are lectures from freaking Dawkins about this exact topic, about how atheists on YouTube need to stop arguing about the freaking, it's not code, it's just chemical reactions, all this kind of stuff. Dude, it's really freaking annoying. Okay?
Language. Don't you have to demonstrate that it was? Don't you have to demonstrate that it was created by a mind?
No, dude. Okay, let's think about this.
Language.
Let's think about it, bro. Let's think
to another.
Dude, let's think about this for a second, man. Oh, good Lord. Okay. If you come across, like we did, the Rosetta Stone, and there's multiple languages on it, we don't actually know the origination of some of those languages.
But the Rosetta Stone.
However, we were able, dude. However, we were able to translate them.
Right.
Okay.
But we know that the Rosetta Stone was created by a being. We don't know that DNA was created by a being.
We don't know. You don't actually know it was created by a being. You never observed it.
The Rosetta Stone was carved in rock. It was created by a being.
How do you know?
Because it was carved in rock.
How do you know? How do you know? How do you know that it was? How do you know that a human or a mind was required?
What, to carve something in rock? You need hands and a mind to carve something in rock.
Why?
You don't need.
I saw water do it before.
How do you know that is required? Because can't water erode shapes into rock?
Not in that way, no.
Oh, okay. Well, in what do you mean? It's just shapes, right? Aren't letters just shapes?
Yeah, water can't do that in that way.
No. Aren't letters just random shapes?
Yeah, but water can't. It'll make something smooth. It'll be.
Dude, is the rock the medium which is now having etched into it different words?
Are you saying the Rosetta Stone was created by water?
No, dude. I'm trying to dumb down the point and help you understand how ludicrous the argument you're making is. Okay, is the rock the medium which contained the words and the language that were being etched into it.
Sorry, just reading the side chat. You'll have to repeat that. I have a very short attention span.
Okay. Was the rock the medium which was containing the words that were being etched into it?
Yes.
Okay. Could it have been done in a clay tablet?
Yes.
Fast forward to today. Can I take all of the language, the different words of different languages that were on the Rosetta Stone, and could I print them out on a piece of paper?
Yes.
Could I encode them into a gene sequence in DNA?
You could, yeah, but it would have to be demonstrated that you've done that. We don't
Hang
know.
on. No. We don't. We're talking about demonstration. You're now demanding demonstration. You didn't see the original etching of the words into the Rosetta Stone, did you?
No, I'm saying that.
Okay. Now, did you see the etching of the words into the Rosetta Stone? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. So now, if I've taken the exact same information and I've encoded it into a gene sequence,
yes.
Do you have to have observed that coding happening in order for the information to be encoded in the gene sequence?
No, I'm saying it could be, but it's not. It's not.
No.
It's not demonstrable.
That's my bro.
It could have been.
Dude, don't dance around. Dude, shut up. Don't dance around. You're missing the point. It's obvious the point is going straight over your head. Okay. Now, if we went back in time and found a gene sequence and we were able to read the code that was encoded in it, and it was a video file, was encoded in a gene sequence that we found 1,000 years ago.
Yes.
Would you say that because you didn't see the video be encoded into it, that it would? Well, I didn't see it, so I don't know if an intelligent agent had to do it.
No, it was. If it was a video file, then it must have been. It must have been intended. So
okay, cool. Okay, so are you suggesting that a three-dimensional motor, the code for its printing in a 3D printer, are you suggesting that code would not require an intelligent agent?
I'm not sure how 3D printers work.
Okay, so a 3D printer code script controls the X, Y, and Z axis, the time variable, and the element that is being printed at a specific moment. An mRNA sequence controls the X, Y, and Z axis, the time variable, and the element, in this context, the amino acid, which is being used to bind together in amino acids in a polypeptide chain to form a three-dimensional object, which is a protein. The codons, which represent those amino acids, do not turn into the amino acids. They never chemically interact with the amino acids. They are digital representations of the amino acid in question. It is the linear script that is the three-dimensional object, becomes a three-dimensional object. Okay? Now, in the context of things like the helicase, which is what one of the factors is required for DNA transcription to take place, you have an object which spins at 10,000 RPMs. It's a freaking motor that spins at 10,000 RPMs to unzip your DNA in order for another machine to come behind it, the DNA polymerase, to come behind and do transcription and replication, or if say RNA polymerase to create a mRNA sequence. Like this is digital. So you have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. The Titan protein is 33,000 amino acids long. Okay, so you have code scripts that are encoded in your genes that are creating nano robots and mechanisms that enable you to live. And they're encoded in these sequences in your genes. And yet, people run around claiming that, well, if it was a short little script, like from something from the Rosetta Stone that was encoded in the DNA, then, and of course that would be an intelligent agent. Like, that's more indicative of an intelligent agent than a nano robot that can spin at 10,000 RPMs. Like,
I'm just saying,
which one of these is more indicative of an intelligent agent being evidence for an intelligent agent being required preceding in order for the encoding to take place? Like, this is the lunacy of the whole. And I'm about to shut up and let you respond. This is the lunacy of the freaking Evo atheist bullshit I hear on YouTube of it's just chemical reactions. No, actually, it's a digital code representation that controls X, Y, and Z axis, time, and element in order for the formation of three-dimensional objects which operate as nanotechnologies in order for you and I to have this conversation. And it is so vastly superior to our nanotech. Like, we didn't even know how to do this crap until we started observing biological systems. We didn't even know this stuff was possible until our technology got to the point where we could even observe it. And now we're trying to copy it and failing miserably as we're trying to create things that are even on the, like, not even close to the same level of precision. And guys are winning Nobel Prizes for creating molecular computers that suck compared to the ones. Anyway, I'm done with my diatribe. I need to go to bed.
Sorry. I have a call, so I needed to. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, it's chemicals. I'm just going to be repeating myself. I'll shut up. I clearly don't understand something.
So hey, I got an analogy. Let's say we found a stone with a bunch of holes and dots on them, right? Bumps and holes, and these bumps represent an on and off switch, just like in a computer code, right? Bytes. And if this stone had the perfect sequence to describe to a 3D printer to print, let's say, like an arm bone or something like that, and somebody found this rock and looked it up and found that this holes and bumps perfectly represents for a 3D printer to print out this, diagram, or sorry, this bone. Would you say then that, oh, no, this information it's not real information because we don't know who made it and we don't even know why it creates bones. So it's probably not real information.
No, what I'm saying is if it was written down like language, like how language works. If it was written down, we would know that it came from but it's chemicals reacting with other chemicals doesn't prove a language.
Yeah, but like, see, the letter A.
It could happen naturally without a mind. Is what I'm saying. Is what the point is. It could happen naturally without a mind.
Yeah, that's where you're wrong, because you're not understanding the order of how these chemicals are laid out and the complexity of the laying out of the specific ATCG, how it's being laid out in the specific order. If you were to take a single strand of your human DNA, it's about 5 feet long. Okay, so that's a 5 foot long.
It doesn't matter how complex it is. It's chemicals reacting. Does. It could happen naturally.
No,
it doesn't matter how complex it is. It doesn't matter.
That does have a huge thing with it, because we actually can't even completely denotate it, and we can't actually
because
even
humans can't replicate it doesn't mean it didn't happen naturally. It doesn't matter how complex it is.
When was there been any time where the DNA has created something new? When have we ever seen DNA create something new?
Wildheart's point is that complexity is not a hallmark of design. Otherwise, people that believe in God, who's presumably complex, he's going to have a designer, right?
Yeah, no, God does not have a designer, because then you're presupposing that God was created and God was not created.
But is that analytic?
Carry on.
Is that just by definition?
Yes, by the Christian definition of God, God is not created, God is not designed. God
is... So there you can have an uncreated, an unintended being, right? That's extremely complex. Why can't the naturalist just appeal to the same criteria?
So what grounds and substantiates any of those things?
Grounds substantiates what?
Any of the naturalistic explanations.
I'm saying you have a double standard.
DNA.
You understand?
You do not have a double standard.
Okay, look, is your standard that the more complex it is, the more likely it is that it's a design hallmark, or that it's intentionally explained?
No, even if it's simple, it's going to be
right. So complexity does not matter in terms of.
It doesn't matter. I'm not saying it does, but I'm saying that one of the things about the DNA language that we can see is that it does have complexity, where it has a very large
complexity does not matter with respect to raising the probability of intentional explanation.
It has it has a large semantic range, and that's what's important about it. And by the way, God isn't complex. We actually have divine simplicity.
Well, that's incoherent.
No, it's not.
Yeah, divine simplicity is incoherent, though.
No,
Are you
it's
talking
not.
about the doctrine of divine simplicity, or are you just saying that God is not made up of parts?
No, God is only of his essence.
Yeah. Look, there are different forms of divine simplicity. Are you talking about the doctrine? Are you just saying that God is not made up of parts?
Well, I'm also talking about the doctrine.
Yeah, that's definitely incoherent.
What's your ground for that?
The idea is that on the doctrine of divine simplicity, God's intrinsic properties are equivalent to his intrinsic properties. And so extrinsic properties are contingent. They could have been otherwise, whereas intrinsic properties are necessary, and it's incoherent to identify a contingent truth or property of God with a necessary one.
Okay, so the divine simplicity concept is that God does not exist in parts. He's completely
No, that's not.
unified.
That's just a. Remember, I clarified.
No,
They're
no,
different versions.
Okay. I'm giving you the version that was promoted and written down by Augustine, Anselm, and Aquinas. Are you familiar with that?
You mean Aquinas? But yeah.
Yes, I did say Aquinas.
Yeah, so they think that God's creative act or God's attributes are all one and the same. Okay, so God's lovingness.
There's no distinct attributes.
Okay, yeah, so that's incoherent, right? Because there are attributes of God that are extrinsic.
Everything that exists has an attribute, doesn't it?
Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. But you see, my argument is that there are extrinsic properties of God, and extrinsic properties are contingent properties.
So do you think that God has a form or physical representation when it comes to divine simplicity?
No, they don't think that.
Yeah, I know, because he's immaterial. So
sure.
Where is the contradiction?
Well, that's not the doctrine of divine simplicity. That's just standard simple. To think God is simple and not made of parts isn't a sufficient account of the doctrine of divine simplicity.
I honestly don't know if this is going to go anywhere, because I listened to some guys, these two theologians, talk about what is properties and how do we define properties. And
I just saying instantiated truths about an object or a subject. That's fine.
Yeah, and he was talking about why it's hard to nail down specific properties. How can you tie these properties to even ideas?
Yeah, there are different theories of that. Like some people will accept substance theory, so they're bare particulars that quote unquote hold on to the properties to maintain identity through time. There are people that think I'm a bundle theorist, so I don't think there's such bare particulars. I think what it means to say that a thing there's an object or a subject is that there's some kind of bundle or set of properties that make up that thing, not grounded in a bare particular. There are other ones, I'm sure, but yeah, it doesn't matter though, right? The point is that when on whatever view you have, the idea is that on divine simplicity, God is not made of parts, nor are on the simple version of divine simplicity, or like God is simple, is that God has no parts. He's not like a molecule, right? Then there's the doctrine of divine simplicity.
No, hold on. That's not what it is. It's God is not distinct from his nature.
No, look, you're not getting it, Sheep. There are different versions of divine simplicity, yes or no?
Yeah,
Sheep.
and so you can just
I'm giving the most watered down version first, and then
what I noticed that you like to do is you like to go just on how you want to define everything.
No,
and I don't think you're a Christian, so how would you be able to define this? Okay, so here there are 4 points to divine simplicity, which I don't.
You know, there are different doctrines of divine simplicity.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so then I already gave the account, right?
Doctrine, because you don't understand.
All of God's attributes are one and the same. Did I not give that account?
No, that's okay. God is not distinct from his nature. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but it's a little bit unclear about what that means, other than what I just proposed.
I can keep going now. Okay, so that's the first claim.
Okay, but the first claim just reduces to what I said.
God's properties are not distinct from one another.
Yeah, that's what I said that as well for the doctrine of divine simplicity. You just don't listen.
What does that even mean, by the way?
It's ridiculous. It's one of the most gibberish Catholic doctrines out there. That's why one of the Protestants don't take usually the divine.
The last one was.
It's just ridiculous. It's asinine, right? I think I side with Protestants on this one, but there is a more general sense of simplicity, and that's just to say God is not made up of parts. And what a part is might be a little bit ambiguous, but definitely everyone agrees that God is not made of material parts, right?
Is that problematic for the Trinity?
Well, for divine simplicity, oh yeah, I mean, it just violates the law of identity, I think, right? Because you're equating different properties, right? So the supposed different properties are to each other, right? So I don't even. It's just pure gibberish.
Yeah, the argument about the Trinity being necessary for God to be love seems to be problematic for this view. I don't. Maybe I'm missing.
Yeah. But like, I think generally Christians accept.
Because you're not understanding that the actual nature is what is shared amongst they're all ontologically the same. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, but that's not in dispute, right?
simultaneously.
You can reject
Yes.
divine simplicity and go for that kind of Trinitarian view.
That is the Trinitarian view because they're present simultaneously.
Divine
But
simplicity is not the Trinitarian view. No.
Not necessarily, anyway, right?
Yeah, no, definitely
I
not.
don't think that we're talking about the same thing. I honestly don't at this point.
Well, I don't
because one of the things that makes God God, whether it's Father, Son, or Holy Spirit, is that they all share in aseity.
Yeah, that's not
When
in
they all
contention,
share
but
the
that's just
same
not the
essence.
doctrine of divine simplicity. That's not in contention.
Can I just add that divine simplicity, if God is God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, isn't that not very simple?
Yeah, I think that the Trinitarians might have a good response. I
Right.
think the Trinitarians that hold on to divine simplicity, though, are going to have. I don't think there is a response.
Kenny probably takes that view. I would guess.
The divine simplicity?
I think so.
Well, look, no, there is a generic sense of simplicity, right? And that is not the doctrine of divine simplicity that the Catholic Church endorses today. Okay,
I'm going to call him in here.
Yeah, you should. There are different senses.
Okay. On that note, I'm exhausted. It's time for us to do our final words. Let's go in a round robin, and I'm calling it a night. So, Slavic's left off. Slavic, I was trying to. How do you said you're ready to go? You're getting ready to bounce. Let's get you in. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
That is the coolest avatar ever, I think. Anyways, if you guys want to continue the theological thing over at my channel, I'm gonna open a stream. So thanks, John, and good to see you, buddy.
Can I get linked? I don't think I'm subscribed to your channel.
Yeah, I'll toss a link in there in like 20
Cheers.
seconds.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for letting me on. It's been good to talk. Thank you.
It was
I
fun
wonder if he's
being
muted.
here.
I wonder if John is muted, but I'm not so sure.
Oh man, I've been sitting here ranting. Okay, so Jamie, what I was saying is we'll keep going until you have a chance to get the link ready and post it inside chat so everybody can bounce over to your channel. And Slavic's getting ready to go to church and going to go to sleep. So Slavic, go ahead, man. You have next word, and then we'll go on from there. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, this was fun. This usually happens pretty late at night, so I got to get rolling. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you coming on, and hope you get some good sleep. Yeah, it's 1 o'clock my time. I'm about to pass out myself. Wildheart, what's up, man? Go ahead. Any last words?
No, I'm done. Thanks for letting me on. It's been a good talk, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Right on. Okay, looks like Jamie is almost ready. So, Jamie, go ahead and post that link. And okay, here it is. All right. Okay. So everybody in the audience, I'm about to post the link over to Jamie's channel for his stream. It's going to kick off as soon as we get done here. So there you go. Head on over there. Sheep, you got any last words?
Oh, I'm good, brother.
Right on. And Danny, good to see you as always, man. What's you got any last words before you head on over? I'm guessing you guys are going to continue this on Jamie's channel.
Yeah, I'll say hi to Jamie at least. Thanks for having me on. Nice. I hope you continue to stream.
One more thing. I think I've just become Jamie's 100th subscriber. He was on 99.
Nice. And LPP, do you know Wildheart? Have you interacted with him before?
I think one other time, but I think the last time Wildheart, I think you were really sloshed.
He probably is now, but but he's kind of harmless, so just keep that in mind.
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot alcoholic. Yes, I am always drunk, but I'm also very stupid as well.
Well, don't sell yourself short. Well, everybody in the audience, I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me on this to the end here, and I hope we will see you again very soon. Everybody wants to go make sure you head on over to Jamie's channel for the fun and frivolity which I'm sure will ensue over there. And as I always like to say at the end of these things, as you contemplate the different factors for your existence, the evidence for against a God, and ultimately analyze, assuming you come to the right, in my opinion, the right conclusion that there is a God, as you analyze which one is correct. I hope that as you use the mind that you've been given by your creator, that you always make sure to reach conclusions that are logical, plausible, and probable. Have a good night, everybody, and see you again soon.